All right, so we're live to YouTube. So anyone watching on YouTube, just want to give you guys a quick heads up that we are going to be recording 2 episodes here tonight. It is July 16th as we speak, so we're going to be doing the first one for tomorrow, July 17th. Just a little bit of summation of news over the last week since we last put an episode out, and then the second half is going to be a mailbag. We put one out to the masses on social media to give us some evergreen content to discuss in a mailbag. So that will be the episode for July 24th, I believe. I'm going to be at the beach all next week. So yeah, we decided to go ahead and knock 2 out in one night. You ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown Podcast. It is Friday, July 17th. Friday rolling.
It's the freaking weekend. We're about to have us some fun. We're recording back-to-backs, giving you guys kind of a news and current up-to-date episode. And then we're also going to be recording a second episode, which we'll release next week, which is going to be an evergreen mailbag. So maybe a good one for a car ride or something of the sort. And we're going to try and pump some good stuff out. It is summer. And the NFL just doesn't stop, man. Football doesn't stop. There's news. And maybe that's just the day and age that we live in now, where kind of stories and things and, you know, the NFL kind of sets up stuff so that things continuously come out kind of at a set date and time, and they kind of keep things rolling. They've really made it a year-round program to keep us engaged. And it's fun because, I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. I need some freaking football. Usually training, we're like right about to go into training camp and that whole ordeal about this time. So everything's running rampant about that. Usually the players are, headed back into the facility and in and out and all that good stuff right now. But obviously things are awry from how they are in the year of destruction, chaos, and insanity.
Yeah, the thing about football is that it can't get here soon enough. As far as what you mentioned there, to start off, like you said, this is going to be a little 2-in-1 situation. So if you're listening to this on podcast, you can go back and access both episodes on YouTube. I'd probably recommend against that if you want to have some content for next week. Like I said, we're just doing this because I'm going to be out of town next week. But yeah, we're going to be covering some news. Like you mentioned, the news cycle does never stop churning when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to sports. But football in particular, for whatever reason, just finds a way to dominate the landscape 365 days a year, whether positive or negative. And today we had some negative news come out down to the adjacent NFL franchise that, are they nameless currently right now? Who could say? But yeah, some not...
The artist formerly known as Redskins.
The artist formerly known as the Washington Football Redskins, presented by Dan Snyder, had what I would describe as probably not a banner week or a couple of weeks for them, going back to some of the controversies with their name, which we hinted at there. Obviously, they're going through some, some turmoil there. They've announced that they're going to be changing it. There's a lot of speculation surrounding that. But in the midst of all that sort of breaking and kind of opening up and people sort of talking about that, there was some undercurrents about some other stuff that was going to be coming out. What was kind of the first sort of inkling that you saw on something like that? Because it started to dribble out slowly and maybe a little frustrating at first, kind of weirdly handled by some people. I thought it was sort of strangely dribbling out, and then finally it all broke today. But what was kind of your first experience seeing some of those things?
As we get a live comment of a name that I'm not going to say, I'm pretty sure I know who that is. MD Lost So Hard. Nice try, but my first inkling that I got...
not him. He's MD Lost So Easy. I think even on YouTube.
Who else is trying to get us then there?
I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, well, I don't know who it actually is, but we're not going to say that either. And anyway, yeah, the first inkling that I got was that there was a rumor floating around that some really bad, ominous stuff was going to come out of the Redskins organization, and that it was going to be, I've heard terms like biblical be thrown around and some other things. So it started, a week or two ago, and these rumors just swirling about what it is. And from there, it really, turned into like a madhouse of different possibilities and things that were kind of circumventing, and Dan Snyder, obviously the head of them. And, here we are with Ron Rivera and the Redskins trying to change their name and dropping that. And that's why we said, obviously, formerly known as the Redskins, the Washington football team. Maybe that's just what they should make their name, the Washington football team. But
they're going to earn a name back.
Yes, exactly. They need to earn it. But yeah, so I just heard various sources that something really bad was going to come out of the Redskins organization, or the formerly Redskins organization. And it progressed from there. What ended up coming out is obviously horrendous, damning, damaging, negligent, toxic, many other adjectives to describe just how bad it is. But there were some crazy theories as well that were supposed to coincide with it. And I kind of, with my tinfoil cap on, which, always gets the people going, it feels like some entity or buddy or someone named Dan Snyder and his people started trying to kind of inflate the rumors. Maybe there was this big inflation of it potentially being gambling, potentially being drugs, potentially being bribing, prostitution, all kinds of things. And in the end, we end up hearing about, yet again, another football franchise that treats women like shit. And it's pitiful. It's, exactly the horrendous things that, football doesn't need. And I feel like it's, everyone says it's ingrained into sports culture and football culture specifically, but I think that's a load of crap. I think that's a way of kind of sugarcoating it and trying to normalize it, because I know so many people that will punch someone in the face if they disrespect a woman and take it too far and things like that. So we end up hearing, there's 15 women, 14 of which anonymous, that come forth and kind of press that there has been sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, just being really shitty general people and being sexist and misogynist and all those horrible things. So it really sucks to hear that come out, that so many, women who are trying to make a name for themselves and wanted to work in football and all those things end up getting turned off of the sport and of the league and all of those things. And there's just no place for that shit anymore. And I'm trying to put this in the right way. So please, let me process and say it with a grain of salt. But I love that this story came out. I love that this stuff is getting exposed, because I feel like, in the day and age of social media, people want to criticize it, but now, it comes out, more stuff gets come out, more stuff gets captured on camera, more of these monstrosities and atrocities get brought to light. I feel like because social media kind of gives a platform and allows an ease and transition, it also lets people know like what's not normal, how other people are treated, what goes on elsewhere in the world, and that, it's not normal what's happening to me. I'm saying me, but I mean them, that they were not being treated with respect. They weren't being treated with decency. And I feel like I speak for the vast majority of people. And unfortunately there's that, 5% of people that are still just jerks, but we're sick and tired of having to hear about these horrible things. I mean, we are sons of mothers. We have sisters. We have, significant others, we have friends, we have all these women in our lives, and obviously, and it goes into just minorities in general, or people that are not in power, and call me what you want, but it's non-white men, and they all get treated like shit, and I'm sick and tired of it. I think pretty much everybody's sick and tired of it, and to be honest, I'm happy that our generation is the social media generation, because we are able to spread like wildfire what's not right. We're able to have conversations about it. We're able to see other circumstances and other things and use logic and conclusions. And of course, that's not everyone, but I feel like it's a strong majority of people. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of this bullshit. I'm sick and tired of people being power hungry. I'm sick and tired of people belittling others because of their own insecurities. And that's why in the end, like a big thing is like normalize, talking about mental health, normalize talking about insecurities, normalize getting better, normalize all of these things, instead of to me, what this story ended up saying was that there are a bunch of grown men in $1 billion franchise with cushy jobs and cushy offices that are fully grown men sexually with the mind of a 7-year-old. The things that they were saying, the text messages they were saying, it's like if you gave a 7-year-old boy the sex prowess of a 25-year-old man or a 50-year-old man, really, not a 25-year-old, and they're just like dumb and perverted is the best two ways to put what was going on. And unfortunately, more men or more women had to be subjected to that. And it just sucks. It just really sucks. And, we are both sitting here, white men. And, it's like, it just blows my mind because especially in today's age, I feel like I have extra responsibility to not be like that, to not be some childish, perverted, racist, demented fucking asshole. And it just like, it's just like, come on, man, come on, stop, cut it out. Just do the right thing. Stand up for other people, have people's backs, try and do your best to make other people feel good and live a happy life instead of, just being some sick pervert that tits, boobs, like whatever, like just cut it out. There's no place for it. I'm glad they're all getting exposed. I'm sorry that these women had to go through these things. I hate the fact that all these rumors floated around about how Dan Snyder was bribing a fish. And maybe this stuff does come out. Frank Placco said, maybe there's more to come, and there probably is, but it feels like there was some sort of concerted effort to inflate this rumor mill full of things that could be even like, it's not that they're better or worse necessarily, but it's shock value. And it's that, those things would have been huge. If Dan Snyder is proven to be bribing NFL officials, that ends up being the takeaway, not that these 15 poor women had to deal with, sexual misconduct from perverted old men. And I feel like it took a lot away from them and the courage that it takes for them to tell their story. And that pisses me off. And I feel like it was a calculated move to try and take away from these women and their feelings. And I mean, this is going to sound stupid, but it's relatable. I feel like I just watched Athlete A recently on Netflix with the Larry Nassar story and the terrible things that all of the poor girls that were in the USA gymnastics program had to suffer through. And it's just like, it's just so disheartening and sickening and demented. And I'm just tired of it. I'm just sick and tired of it. And everyone that got fired from the Washington football team organization and all that shit that is to come deserves much worse than they're even going to get. And they all do. And they can honestly all stick it where the sun don't shine. I'm sick and tired of them. And like I said, in the end, if you are a white male, especially in a position of power, you should be uplifting people. You should be encouraging growth. You should be encouraging people to be confident that are not white males. And they're not doing that. They're doing the exact opposite. They're just continuously grinding on people that aren't, that they know. It's like this whole sick mental thing where they know they're in a position of power. They know there's nothing anyone can do. They know that no one will believe them, all of these things, and they take advantage of it. And like, I just hope there's a special place in hell for them. That's all. That's my piece on it.
That was really well said. I think that's going to be in your Mount Rushmore of rants. You went pretty long there.
That was a long one, but there's my thoughts. I'm just freaking sick and tired of it.
I like it. You made a lot of really good points. As far as, the men in power thing, like, I hate to come across as like judgmental to anyone or anything, but I'm sick and tired of it too. And like, frankly, it's your responsibility to get better and be better than the generations before you. And, as we're learning from some of the guys that were maybe from the generation before us, they didn't do a great job of that. It sounds like there are some guys in our generation that are not doing a great job of that. I know guys my age that are not doing a great job of that. And like, I'm not sitting here and saying that I'm perfect. I'm certainly not. I have a lot of things to work on, but I think I have made a concerted effort, especially over the last couple of years, to sort of broaden my horizons and try to become more sensitive to issues that don't necessarily affect me, because that's how you're going to affect change in a world that is very much messed up. And this is a story that came out and confirmed that. And the way that it came out was also pretty annoying. I don't totally blame some people for putting some stuff out there, but just sort of the sensationalizing of it all, like early in the week, especially when people are like, oh, this is really bad. Like, I'm hearing a lot of stuff. Like, I'm hearing X, I'm hearing Y. It's like, all right, dude, you're kind of just clout chasing at this point. Like, you're doing anything for the clout. And it's kind of pretty shameless. And you're just trying to ride the wave of the reporting that I'm the guy's name is blanking on me, who put this whole WAPO story together that I think that was pretty well written, and he did a good job covering all the angles. As far as the story itself, I think you mentioned what it meant to you, and I think you did a good job summarizing that. For me, what it meant was just yet another example of the position that women are in, and to an extent, the position that some men are put in who come into contact with this type of stuff, whether they're dealing with it in a direct or indirect level, and what the burden of that means to them. Like, do you come forward and risk your job? A lot of these people, their dream was to work in the NFL, and they get there, and it's not quite what it was cracked up to be to them in their mind. In fact, it turns out to be something quite opposite to that, particularly to the women that were affected by this and are still kind of dealing with it in one way or another. And they're just put in a position, man, where they feel like they have no other option than to just sit back and take it. And that's what's especially shitty to me. And that's I think speaks to the culture that Dan Snyder, that little dweeby fuck, has put together there for the past 2 decades at this point. I think he's on the team for 21 years now. The guy is just a terrible owner. He's toxic. He's Diet Donald Sterling. And he has been running a once proud franchise into the ground. And that's not to say that the Redskins are the only organization that has this stuff going on, because I'm sure there's many more. And maybe this was the first.
I feel like to a degree, it's like all of them.
Yeah, like I think this is probably just the first lid in many that are going to blow on this type of thing soon. But of course, it's emblematic that the Redskins, who are one of the most dysfunctional, just bottom barrel franchises, and like we said, we have a lot of respect for a lot of their fans and everything that they've gone through recently. But yeah, it just speaks to terrible culture, terrible leadership. Dan Snyder, I think, could be forced out hypothetically. I don't know if it's going to happen. If I had to, put money on one side or the other, I think he's probably going to stick around for at least the near future. But the guy just got completely exposed in this story as pretty much everything we already thought, just bad leader, incompetent, a guy who just has no social ability whatsoever. He's like mocking the guy for being a male cheerleader, which, like, whatever, like maybe that was more of a benign joke or it was taken out of context. But just the fact that he would like make a joke like that, like Dan Snyder strikes me as a guy who like has always wanted to be like one of the guys, but he just has never, done the work to gain the social skills to do so. And, the fact that he just happened into a ton of money, maybe that helped him in some ways, but it definitely did not help him, because money just kind of makes you more of who you are in some ways. And he was who he was before this, which was insecure, incompetent, and not a great leader. And that just made him even more of that as this story trickled out and completely exposed him and the Redskins for some pretty shitty stuff, like you pretty much already hit on there more perfectly than I could have.
And going even further and existentially meta, whatever you want to call it, is like the saddest part of this entire thing. And I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar, as local DMV and Baltimore border each other and all that stuff. But I mean, the Redskins ripped seats out of their stadium because they couldn't put fans in the stands. And if you don't reach a certain percentage of your games being populated in person, you get blacked out from TV. It's happened to the Jaguars. And somehow the Redskins are still, like, I don't have it off the top of my head. It's a quick Google away, but like the 5th, 3rd, 6th most valuable franchise? They're like in that ballpark. Like, they're $1 billion franchise. And
NFL franchises, even the most destitute ones, just print money. Like, it's insane.
Yes, and the Redskins are the bottom, the shittiest, most worthless, poorly run, done everything wrong. I mean, even looking at their players, they sign washed up stars that are clearly deranged, who end up like basically being drunks and party animals that get paid way too much for the Redskins. Like, they don't value what their players do on the field as much as who they are. And in the end, like, it just shows that the morality is forsaken for the revenue. And I just hope that, and there's some people that argue to the death and are pure capitalists and whatever, but like, in the end, to me, you can only be that way for so long before you fail if you don't have even a modicum of morality.
There's no problem. I mean, to me, like, I have no problem with capitalism, but you need to realize the difference between capitalism and greed. And you also need to realize when there's
a balance. As everything, too much of something is bad.
And when you're focusing more on your bottom line than you are on, the long term, you're focusing on the dimes, not the dollars. maybe a little bit of an investment in PR. They only had one PR person working there. Maybe
overseeing. They had one person to oversee about 240, maybe it was like 229. I can't remember the exact number.
Yeah, right.
Staff, one person for 240, while all of this lewd behavior is going on. And I say lewd, and that's downplaying it. All of this perverted behavior is going on, and there's one poor soul in charge of that probably you can't even possibly pay enough to deal with that. And no wonder all this shit's running rampant. I mean, how do you possibly manage 240 people in this setting? And it's just like, in the end, it's just so sad because like football has all these horrible stigmas around it. And, I like to think that it's getting better and being more inclusive and all that shit, but there's just stuff like this still. And it's just like, how did these douchebags get into this point of power, survive this long, that don't deserve it? And they're just shitty people, and it just sucks. But in the end, it came to light. You can act like an asshole all you want and think that you're safe, but in today's age, you're not. You're not safe to act like a selfish, greedy pervert. You will be brought to light eventually, and that's what I love about this day and age. And it's unfortunate. It's very stressful for us. And we're gonna sound like little babies or whatever, but it's stressful having to hear about all this shit all the time and all these negative things.
I want to stop you right there real quick, because we're not little babies for the ones that are talking about this and discussing this and trying to have some honest and open discourse. The people that are the babies are the ones that are ignoring that discourse and choosing to keep their heads in the sand and choosing to continue to perpetuate what is, quite frankly, just bullshit and has been in place forever, because the NFL is still ostensibly a boys' club. And, just like a lot of institutions in the United States and pretty much the entire world, that's kind of the way things go. But like you mentioned, it's not going to be that way forever. And with the age of information, we millennials and the Gen Z, whatever, they get shit on for being stupid or being obsessed with social media or kind of having their heads in the clouds a little bit. This is definitely one thing where those types of people are going to get exposed. And when I tell you it's time to mature a little bit and it's time to maybe kind of look in the mirror and intentionally sort of try to improve yourself, I'm telling you that for your benefit, because maybe you're going to look back in 20 years and maybe not see anything on social media, but you're going to see the way the culture has changed and society has changed in that length of time. And you're going to start to regret the way that you decided to build your persona, the way you decided to communicate who you were. I think it's time for people to really look in the mirror and try to make really, effective change to themselves.
And the nepotism, and it doesn't have to be literal nepotism, but it's like this regime of whatever, of your name, not your merit. I mean, I like to think that we're getting better with that, but then there's shit like this, and it just is deflating, because that those people that act that way get to act that way and essentially not face consequence because of who they are instead of the merit of their work. And you just know that there are such better people to be in those positions on those teams that would love to, that would be passionate, and maybe they're not perfect, but they're not going to act the way that those people were in the Redskins organization, but they deserve a shot and they're not getting it. And to me, that trickles all the way down to the fact that the NFL has been 70% black players for so long, since the late 80s, early 90s. It's been above 50%. And how many black coaches are there? How many black executives are there? How many scouts are black? How many GMs are black? And the thing is,
like, women are there? There's like no women at all. Maybe a few in the league right now.
Absolutely. And to me, it's just insane, because like we're in this age now, football wise, of PFF and analytics and, all these different companies and all that's being mainstay. But like, if you're an NFL player, you get a scouting report every week that is detailed analytics. This team uses 11 personnel, this percentage of the time. We're going to get into we're about to talk about Warren Sharp in this episode and all that stuff. But if you're on an NFL team, this shit, we had Emery Hunt on to talk about this. This shit's been around for 40 years already for the players. And so the idea that like the players might not be competent or like something, but like they have been the ones applying the analytics. It's just called scouting for 40 years at this point, where they get a sheet or many sheets that details, opponent's usage, formation, tendencies, what to look for, how to play things, how to play different things. And just the idea that these players and college football players and all these things, like they have a high level comprehension of this. Most of them are black, and none of them are given opportunity in the NFL. It's a strain of nepotism of good old boys club, as you mentioned, that trickles down, where who you are and who you know is better than what you are and what you know. And that's bullshit. And I'm tired of that as well. That is, you can say that's the way the world works, but fuck that. I'm tired of it, and I'm going to stomp on it. So here we are.
Yeah, it is the way the world works, but that kind of stuff doesn't change overnight. But, I think just having the conversation about it and calling it out, I think ultimately, hopefully will affect one person, then that person affects another person, and then it just kind of spreads virally in that way. And ultimately, we can be looking at an improved world, hopefully, down the line, like we've been discussing with the more wide-ranging stuff with everything that happened with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. It's going to take a while, but just continue to call it out. Continue to put the foot on the throat of the society that is, quite frankly, bloated and in need of some serious change.
And I absolutely don't want to be someone who, does. Utopia is never going to happen. Utopia is a word and is a thing because it is impossible to achieve a utopia. So I don't want to, come across as if
tell that to my City file.
I don't want to ever. You're insane.
No, I just sicked the hurricanes on everyone immediately. It was.
But there's never going to be a utopia. That's why the word utopia exists. So I'm not ever expecting perfection. But again, to quote, Chris Berman, Tom Jackson, just come on, man. Like, that's the best way that I can describe my feelings towards all of this whirlwind of stuff that it encompasses is just, come on, man. Like, be better, do better, look at where you are, step out of your own shoes for 2 fucking seconds. Step out of your own self, look at yourself, look at who you are, where you are, and the ways that you can implement change in the world, and just stop being a dick. And that's all. Just take a reality check, look in the mirror, look at where you are, how you can help people, how you can affect other people positively. And, I guess old men, get a pass for being perverts or something, but that seems like that's gone too. I think that's something our society, it's like, oh, he's just a creepy old man. Like, no, at this point, it's so much more than that. There's these norms and these things, and they've got to go. That's not normal. It's not normal to be a creepy old man. Don't normalize that, and don't treat women like shit. Don't treat anyone like shit in general, unless they are an asshole, which you judge not for wealth, rank, honor, skin color, but for their personal worth and character. So
I just tweeted that out. That's going to be going on some sort of campaign slogan when you inevitably do run for some sort of office. Stop being a dick. Spencer Schultz, 2020. So I guess, is that all we got on that? We went almost half an hour.
Yeah, that's all I got. I will say, this isn't going to come back, but I will say, steering away, but still with the former Redskins, Red Wolves. I'm behind it. I love Wolves.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the name change.
Yeah, the name change. So the name change, I don't know if that was a stunt to try and deflect, whatever, who knows, but Red Wolves, I like it. In the end,
that brings it all the way back to the sponsors that were threatening to pull away. So you had FedEx threatening to pull away. Who else was, that's deeply involved with the organization that were threatening to pull away if they didn't do something about the name? Maybe that had something to do with all this, but I think it was just kind of auspicious timing in that they all threatened to do that. And that's really what got Snyder to get on his horse and start to implement the name change. I think all of this is just kind of a shitstorm of epic proportions that has come together for this one hell week for the Redskins. And the name is officially going to be changed.
Yes, and I hope it's Red Wolves. I like Red Wolves. I like that. I think that does pertain to Native American culture in a positive way in many, Native American tribes and ideologies. A wolf is a sign of strength, is family, and all those wonderful things. And I also just love wolves. It's my favorite animal. I like their designs. I like the logos. I like all of the fan ones used. People bitch and moan about, the changing of guard from the Redskins, but it's just like, in the end, you can bitch about it all you want, but don't just stop naming things after people's skin color. Stop talking like it's just not best for $1 billion franchise to be something skin. Like,
I don't listen to the radio anymore, but I was a big DC 101 guy in high school. Shout out to them. They do awesome stuff. They were having this discussion in like 2012. So it's been going on for that long and probably longer. If I were a Skins fan, I'd probably just wash my hands of it at this point and be ready to cut my losses and move on because it seems like it's getting kind of annoying. It's pretty
Cody
crazy.
McGowan comments and says, yes, Nike said they wouldn't stock the apparel anymore, and they've
That makes
removed
sense.
it from the store.
Their investment in Kaepernick, I think, they probably want to.
And good for Nike. I mean, good for Nike, but at the same time, Nike sweatshops, like all that shit still exists.
Yeah,
so. But it just the thing with Redskins fans with not wanting the name, and especially like guys that are our age. What good memories do you have of the Redskins? What good memories do you have going 9-7 and winning the division, and then watching RG3's ACL get torn, and that's your only playoff experience? It's worse than being an Orioles fan.
It's really the only. It's RG3 in 2012. That's it. 10-6 division win, losing the playoffs at home. It's a tough scene for Redskins fans. It's like you mentioned. It is worse than the. It's worse than the
Peter Angelos. Somehow Peter Angelos isn't worse than Dan Snyder, and that is like.
I think the thing about Angelos is I think he's like a good guy, but he's a little cash strapped and a little old school and kind of runs things like a mom and pop shop. Hopefully his sons are going to be a little bit better than that. I guess we'll see. Dan Snyder to me just seems like I mentioned, he just seems like the dude who just had the rich parents and like just wanted to be friends with everyone, and he just never learned the social skills. I get a really bad vibe from Dan Snyder.
I had a buddy who he actually attended a birthday party for one of Dan Snyder's sons' 5th birthday party. I think he was like a family friend of a friend or something, whatever. And he said he goes to Dan Snyder's, estate, whatever you want to call it. And it's this beautiful, huge house, backyard. And he was a Redskins fan. So he was like super excited to like maybe meet Dan Snyder. This was years ago, and was super excited. And he told me that the party went on and it was beautiful, catered. There's all kinds of, really cool stuff for a little kid birthday party. And he doesn't see Dan Snyder anywhere. So it's like, oh, that's weird. Where's Dan Snyder? It's his son's birthday. He said, Dan Snyder, you hear Dan Snyder pulls around the side, like, so you can see his like Ferrari or whatever the hell, obvious expensive car he pulled up in, walks up to the balcony overseeing the party. Everyone gets quiet and he goes, happy birthday, whatever his son's name, happy birthday, Johnny, whatever. And then just walked away and left. And ever since then, that just gives you an insight into Dan Snyder being a D-bag.
Yeah, I mean, it gives off big time, like, trying to be Ari Gold vibes, but, like, not Ari Gold. He's like the guy that he bought that fake Ari Gold book that came out, and he, like, read it, and he, like, took it seriously. And he just, like, modeled his life after that.
Yes, he is a poor man's loser version of Ari Gold. Yes, I agree.
Maybe a more modern reference. He's like trying to be Bobby Axe, but like he's just not. He doesn't have the social skills. Like he just doesn't have them. Some people are like that. I know.
He's like the Secretary of the Treasury in what is that guy's position in Billions? Bobby Axelrod's buddy, who's like super short. The guy that not Spiros.
He is like Spiros in some ways. Probably.
Kind of, but he's the guy who's like the Secretary of the Treasury that Bobby Axelrod's boys with. And
I know who you're talking. Yeah, I forget the guy's name.
He reminds me of that guy. That's who Dan Snyder is.
That's actually a good one. Yeah, the dude that's like 5'4" and like he loses.
Not Wags, Cody.
Yeah, not Wags. It's his.
Wags
it's like
is the legend.
He's a dude that like owns one of the other firms. And then he gets a position within the government. I forget his name.
In the Treasury. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he owns. What is that?
That's Dan Snyder for me, though.
That's gonna kill me.
Anyway, yeah. Red Wolves. I love it, and I think that's cool. I think that it kind of is like a nod to Native American history. I think you can keep the R, hail to the Red Wolves instead of Redskins. I think that they should keep an R if possible, and I think it's kind of a nod that like we used to, like it keeps the Native American culture kind of vibe without being offensive.
How about the Washington overpriced cups of coffee? Am I right?
Hey,
how about the Washington too much traffic on 495? Am I right?
Oh, bazinga!
How about the Washington overpriced rounds of golf at shitty courses? That's actually not true. They've got some nice down there.
They
but yeah, I get okay. Is that all we got on the name?
That's all we got on the name.
Okay, moving on. We had the Madden ratings come out. Always a fun topic for people. I usually don't really care that much. Ravens kind of, you don't see this much outrage surrounding them over the last couple of years, but now that they are very heavily within the bloodstream of NFL fans as one of the teams on the rise, or potentially just one of the.
They're a cash cow right now for the NFL.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. So very marketable. A lot of young stars, a lot of people and players that are going to be featuring heavily in the game. So starting off with the cover boy, you got Lamar Jackson, third best quarterback in the game at a 94. He had I think a 96 speed and acceleration, a very high awareness as well. You had Marlon Humphrey as the sixth best cornerback at 89. That turned some heads. Earl Thomas as the 10th best safety at 88. I didn't really have too many issues with any of those. Any of these other ones catch your eye?
I really like Mark Ingram's ratings. He was kind of upset.
Pretty low, right?
He was an 86, and I think people get caught up in the overall, but as someone who plays the living shit out of Madden every year, he had I think he had a 92 juke, an 88 break tackle, a 92 juke. That's 8 points higher than he had last year or something. He's going to be able to shake, and he's never going to be a burner, but I thought that was really good. I'm interested to see what Pat Ricard is. I think fullback ratings and kicker ratings are always the overall is never high.
I actually tried to look him up today on their little player ratings thing that they have on their website, but it didn't bring anything.
Kyle Juszczyk should be a 97.
Yeah, I typed in fullback and it didn't bring anything up.
Then Tucker is an 87, but he's always the highest rated kicker, which it just doesn't make sense, which is just one of those lazy little things about Madden where they have something in place that should be fit. Justin Tucker should be a 99 and have a 99 gold chain and be in their little 99 announcement shit because he's the greatest kicker of all time. He is a perfect kicker. I
saw a PFF Moo tweeting about that a little bit. He's an 86 or whatever. The problem with kickers, I feel in Madden, is that they're just completely reversed to what the issues are in real life. So in Madden, a lot of them have issues with power and getting the ball even to the goalpost. I feel in real life, it's sort of the other way where a lot of these guys have legs, but they just have no accuracy.
Right. And they'll drive it over the upright, but miss the post. They miss not short, but wide. And I agree with that. They should also have a variation of kick ratings where it's long accuracy, short accuracy, the same way they have it for quarterbacks, I think. But anyway, yeah, Tucker should be a 99. He's an 87. He's still the highest rated kicker, but it's just lazy on their part to not change the ratings so that he's a 99 instead of an 87. What do you want? Is speed to be a 90 to make him a 99? It doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. And the same thing applies with fullbacks. Calais Campbell's a 95. PFF has him as one of the top 50 players in football. He was their run defender of the year last year. So he's definitely going to be a force on the inside. I think Patrick Queen's a 72 or something. Marlon Humphrey, an 89. Really good at man coverage, probably. He ended up getting the badge at the end of the year last year for man coverage, which was A-okay with me. You see Richard Sherman above him and Jair Alexander. That was kind of stupid. And then Garnett tells us Peters play recognition. Yeah, Peters was a snub. All 5 Ravens tweeted what the hell. I remember Lamar Jackson saying his least favorite person to throw at is Marcus Peters. Apparently he picks the shit out of Lamar in practice.
He's also probably just a little shit talker. No matter what happens, we all have this guy in any sport that you play. It's just no matter what happens, the dude is just always jawing in your ear, whether he's trying to be a coach on the field or he's actually talking mess. It's let's calm down a little bit, dude. It's practice. That's definitely Peters.
Right. And he should just have Marcus Peters is the best ball skills of any corner. So his jumping, his catching, his spectacular catch, all that stuff should be super high. Tackling can be low. That's fine. His speed doesn't have to be super high, but it should still be an 88 or better. His zone and man should be high, all that stuff. So we'll see. But the thing is, I don't get mad about these. The best way to put it is that Hollywood Brown to end last year was an 80. And that's because his awareness is low. A lot of these ratings are tied to awareness. And if you're playing, that doesn't really affect you as much. If you're simulating a franchise, I get it. But Hollywood was an 80, but he had a 97 speed. He had a good release rating. He had a good deep route running rating. So I would throw him fades and I would score a lot of touchdowns because if you play press and you don't have a fast corner, he's just going to run by them. And I just tap, X and Hollywood Brown scores a touchdown. I've done that 1,000 times in the last Madden. I would take him over most receivers that were an 85 because of those ratings, those specific ratings and the way that I use them. So I think, it doesn't matter. Plus, they end up updating the rosters every single week. So they kind of do these initial ratings based on kind of like legacy a little bit almost and consistency over time and someone being dominant for like 3-4 years, they're going to be in the 90s versus like they basically said Andre Weed Garden, whatever his name is.
Garden.
Yeah, he tweeted and was like, yeah, Minka Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt are, high 80s because they haven't really been like doing it for a long time. TJ Watt, I kind of disagree with. He feel like he should be like a 95, but I get it. And let's say TJ Watt starts out the first 4 games as 5 sacks, he'll probably be like a 93. So they adjust that shit. It's not the end of the world. And I love that they adjust it. They update it all the time. I love when they do updates. I love when someone has a huge game and then they get like a 3-point boost in Madden. I think that's really cool. They've been doing that for a long time. They were the first game to do that of the sports franchises. And I like it. So, you're complaining about it now, but it's not going to matter midway through the season. And sometimes they still have guys that are kind of lacking behind and whatever, and they're not perfect, but whatever. It seems like they put a lot of effort into it. And what Andre was saying about like Baker Mayfield's throwing velocity in games is what's contributing. And they have that all fine tuned and all this stuff. So I think they put a lot more time and effort into it than we realize. And I like playing Madden. And I also will say that I'll stand up for Madden because everyone's like, oh, it's the same game every year. I don't think that's true.
So I've had my well-documented issues with him. I think that is only in reference to franchise mode, which I am 100% on board with. The gameplay to me is fine. Like there's nothing terrible about it. They've just done nothing significant with the franchise in pretty much a decade.
Right. And I usually play online for a long time. And then around this time of the year, I start playing franchise before the next
You're a big online guy.
Yes, I do that mainly until kind of like 3 months before the next Madden comes out. And then I like to draft the new players and I like to do the draft classes you can download from the community file and all that stuff. So I enjoy doing that very much so. And yeah, the game could use a lot of tweaking, different options. There should just be more customization possible for what kind of features you want or how you want to run the franchise. And there's a million ways to fix it, but Madden finally has been like the EA employees that are out there on Twitter and stuff have been taking kind of responsibility and acknowledging that
shitty. Like it's not their fault. Like they're trying pretty much every year to do what they can, but they have a very short development window. And they're, as has been explained by, I think some videos that I've watched, that it's not even like them. It's like the higher ups at EA that are basically just forcing them to do one thing. So they've had this like career mode thing that they've been doing the last couple of years, like long shot and now the QB1 thing or whatever.
Which is so close to being really good, but it's not.
Yeah, and so like all the people that typically would work on franchise have been working on that for the past 3 years. And like before that, it was the Ultimate Team stuff. So they were working on like Ultimate Team and like improving that kind of thing. So it's weird. I don't know 100% who to blame. I really don't care. Just fix franchise. That's all I ask. It sounds like they've taken notice of a lot of those complaints. Hopefully by 2022 or whatever the next entry is going to be, it's going to be, better. But I don't have my hopes up. But it's also, I don't want to go too crazy. Like it's just a game. I'm definitely going to buy it this year because of the cover. Probably just going to keep buying it every year. It's not a huge deal. Just, fix franchise. That's all I ask.
Yeah. And I will say too, like they added the superstar badges and that whole thing last year.
Yeah. That's fun.
That was always kind of a gripe for me because I want more style things that are relative to superstar players. And they did that. So I'm like the jukebox and spins, like all that stuff I love. I think that's really cool. That was a major thing they did last year.
Like if you look at like some of the other like sports games, their career modes, like 2K's, people even complain about that at this point, but that even in its current iteration blows Madden out of the water. I'm currently playing Formula 1 2020. Oh, sick game. Really well done. Probably the best sports game I've played in a while. Just been getting into Formula 1 the last couple months because of that Netflix series, F1 Drive to Survive. Check it out if you have not. It's an amazing, probably the best sports documentary in that hard knock style that I've maybe ever seen, at least in a while. So F1 2020 is an awesome sports game. So I think if they kind of look at games like that, and then hopefully this new PGA Tour 2K21 is going to be good, and just kind of balance the game out a little bit, make it feel like the franchise is getting some attention, that QB1 thing is getting some attention, maybe combine those two if you have to, and keep giving the online players some love too, because they're making a lot of money.
Yeah, online's had some serious problems. Like, I don't know what it's been. They've just ignored it for like at least 2 years that you can't see your like world ranking anymore, and you haven't been able to see the ranking or the record of your opponent that you just played, but you have the option to do it. You click it and nothing comes up. and it's just like a little compartment inside the game, just a tiny little thing that probably takes more to fix than I would remember, but
It's hard.
I'm sure, but that there's just these little nuggets everywhere that are just like tiny little things that piss you off. And I mean, I or my mother, as I was growing up, have spent now. I've been playing since like 2004, and I've bought every single one, or my mom did until I was, like.
Shout out to you not doing chores.
I never got an allowance for chores. I just had to do my chores. Not a thing for me. But yeah, that's a lot of money spent. And I remember the first time I bought my own, and it was a great feeling. That was one of the first things I bought when I finally got a job when I was like 17, but spent a lot of money on it. And I think there's a very strong, faithful following, as there are with many games, and especially someone like me. I don't care. I'll buy it every year. I will buy it every year. I'll probably do that for at least another 10 years. I blindly follow them. I love their game. I just love it. And one of the reasons I like football so much, one of the core reasons I like football so much is because of that game. So I see one end of it. And like you said, they have a short window to do major things that, they can't, but improve.
Yeah, that's part of the reason, our society is going the direction is going is people just blindly follow. It's kind of a little bit of a sheep right now, man. It's fucking crazy, man. You should smoke some DMT. Jimmy, see if you can pull up the effect of DMT on, sheeple out here that are just blindly following society.
Joe Rogan.
Shout out. Shout out to our 15-minute discussion on Joe Rogan, and that got some love on Reddit the other day.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody was like, I think somebody posted like asking for like best Ravens podcast, and like it listed, I think, like the official ones that they have on the Ravens site, and then the guy had us on there, and he's like, yeah, it's really good. It's definitely like the 18 to 35, like, bro
demographic
white guy thing. Definitely influenced a little bit by Pardon My Take. It can get a little stale. They had like a 15-minute discussion on Joe Rogan the other day, and I was like, you know what? I can probably pretty much wholeheartedly endorse all of what you just said, positive and negative.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We ramble, but we like rambling. And thank you guys for sticking with us.
We appreciate it. I guess that's all we got on Madden.
That's all we got on Madden.
Okay, moving on. The franchise tag deadline has come and gone. Dak Prescott going to play on the tag. Chris Jones not going to play on the tag. Matthew Judon going to play on the tag.
Do we have any holdouts? AJ Green?
AJ Green.
I think he's the only holdout, and no one has talked about it, and no one cares.
Is he even on? Damn, I didn't even know he was on it.
$17 million, and I think he hasn't signed it still. I might be wrong. I don't think he signed his tag yet.
I think they were honestly thinking about moving on from them. Burrow was like, let's talk him.
Whoa, pump the rakes. Give me the most underrated receiver.
Oh, I'm trying to start a career here.
Hey, I got to throw some touchdowns.
He's going to lock AJ Green in the locker room and turn around and be like, now you can't leave. Shout out to Broxdale.
But yeah, so I feel like there's no major holdout though. I feel like last couple of years there's been crazy holdouts that are like these entire things. I guess is Ngakoue? Did Ngakoue sign?
That's a whole thing. No, he did not sign. There have been
there's another
other
one.
teams.
Okay,
Jacksonville is in no hurry to move him. That is just an absolute like.
They're
shit.
saying they want to now. The report is like that they want a third rounder, and I think Ngakoue is slightly overrated, but I think he also plays on a shitty team and might not be as fully committed to that team this past year.
You're a pass rusher. I feel like if he goes somewhere with a good front seven, he could really eat. But
he has a good he had a lot of run stops too. He's a good player, but I think he's a little tiny blown out of proportion. Like
I think Ravens fans, you're probably seeing that a lot from too with the Terps connection. But good player.
That's the local bias there a little bit. But yeah, and then the rumor is that a Pro Bowl player was offered. I think Big Cat Country, the SB Nation page of the Jacksonville Jaguars, said that they thought it was Judon. Another one said they thought it was Trubisky. They said there was a Pro Bowl player who wasn't a scheme fit.
A Pro Bowl player, Mitch Trubisky on the block. That's the first thing I thought of.
It's hilarious. There's a picture of him with Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, like the three quarterbacks of that draft class. And
I kind of feel bad for Bears fans at that point because it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, I don't know.
He had a decent year too, and then he got the little Pro Bowl nod, and then just was holy crap bad this past year.
It was the thing where he had that year, and like the tape guys were just like still like, hey, this guy still kind of sucks, and then I don't know. I was rooting for him a little bit in that sense because I kind of don't like it when people, I guess they're not rooting for him to fail necessarily, but it sort of gets a little bit nasty at certain points. And I was like, kind of hope this guy seems like a good guy. Hope he's able to parlay this into a real career. To this point, has not been able to do so.
Has not been able to do so. But yeah, so Ngakoue, AJ Green, but long story short, bringing it back to the Ravens, 50 minutes into the podcast, Matthew Judon is going to play on the franchise tag. I made some posts on the Instagram and on Twitter as well, because I just saw a lot of Judon was like cussing people out kind of on social media at one point and getting pissed, but like rightfully so. I don't know what everyone shit talks him about so much. I basically did a full breakdown of my thoughts on Judon, and it is that
I think all that specifically came from him tweeting at Honey Badger, like, how's the real estate looking in Kansas City, asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Cute, and then he followed it up and he was like asking for a friend. It's like, all right, dude, like if you're going to troll, just troll. Like you don't have to like do all this stuff. And then he allowed that to kind of get to him a little bit. And to his credit, I think that was something that he had been known for.
He did kind of dig his own grave on that one.
He had been known for a little bit in his first couple of years, or at least more recently when the contract talks had come up. And we had both given him a lot of credit for turning that around, being pretty, quiet and just kind of going about his business the last year or so. Came to a head a little bit with all the fans kind of talking smack to him, which if you're one of those people and you're listening to this, stop talking shit to him. He's just a guy trying to earn a living, whether that's here or somewhere else. You don't really have any right to do that. So stop.
It's just...
he's a good player.
Like, it's just a crazy life.
He wants to, earn some money, whether that's here or elsewhere. Don't begrudge him, unless he says some.
He said he came when he was mad. When he was mad, he was like, "I want to be here. They don't want me." Was one of the comments he made. He was like, "I'm trying to stay in Baltimore. They won't re-sign me." Which
is just something that like you say when you're in negotiations and like they're not going to plug one like that.
I don't know. I think the Ravens are holding off. I think they're enjoying the fact that they have the franchise tag, and I think from that perspective, it's smart. Let him play on the tag, buy some more time, figure out, if everyone's healthy, who you want to resign. It's not the end of the world. He hasn't made that big of a fuss, just a little tiny fuss. And, I think he's a really good player. I think that, he drops into coverage 20% of his freaking snaps against the pass, and no one realizes that or gives him any credit for it. And then everyone's like, oh, he's not a top 10 pass rusher, but he rushes the passer
80%.
80% of the time. He only had like 400 and some odd pass rushing attempts. Chandler Jones had 600. How are you going to be a top 10 pass rusher who rushes the passer less than 28 other guys?
It's similar to, in a different way, maybe with the way that I think Ravens fans try to disrespect TJ Watt, who we mentioned, and I think we have a question on. That's a dude that drops back a significant amount as well, I believe.
Yeah, he drops back a good bit.
People just don't take that into account when it comes to guys that are, maybe they come into the league as pass rushers. Maybe they get that label slapped onto them for whatever, but a la TJ Watt, Judon is a guy that does much more than that, as we've discussed and will continue to.
Yeah, and everyone has these little, like the number one thing that makes me mad is there's the argument that I think PFF tweeted it once, and they tweeted a second thing as well that no one talks about. They tweeted out and said that 53% of his pressures, I can't remember the exact one, but it was about half of his pressures come from unblocked or cleanup. And to me, like he sacked Deshaun Watson twice, which is like Rocky trying to catch a chicken in the back. Like Deshaun Watson is really difficult to bring down. That was considered cleanup. So I think that you have to have a certain amount of athleticism to go chase down on a super athletic quarterback and do that. So I hate that. Number two, the reason that he gets unblocked pressure is because he is versatile enough to drop back into coverage. So if he can drop back into coverage 10, 15 times a game and rush the passer well, then maybe the offensive line and quarterback, who are professionals that do their best to try to make an effort to figure out what he's going to do, don't know what he's going to do because he might drop back into coverage because he's good at dropping back into coverage. That is what allows him to come unblocked, that he's able to bluff and disguise what he's going to do. That is the signature of the Ravens defense since freaking Mike Nolan all the way back in the day. And right. And we've talked about the creeper blitzes. We've had extensive talks on here about that. And Judon is perfect for it. And so you go back, you look at what's happened in the last 2 years now. The Ravens could have franchise tagged Zadarius Smith last year if they wanted to. They chose not to. They let him go and then tag Judon. So they keep Judon for 2 years instead of maybe trading Judon and keeping Smith. Why? because I think they like Judon's ability to cover. They like that he can provide that versatility, has that scheme fit aspect, and is a positionless defender in many ways. So in the end, people are knocking him for these things that just don't quite add up. And they're like, oh, well, he only has this many sacks and blah, blah, blah. But in the end, he's not rushing the passer enough. Like if you took Chandler Jones, who had 19 sacks last year, cut his pass rushes down to 439, whatever Judon's was, he's not going to have 19 fucking sacks. He's going to have like 13, 12, 11, 10. And then he's right where Judon is while not being able to cover as well. So different strokes for different folks, different positions. There's a lot more that goes into that. Long story short, like I said, I like that the Ravens have Judon on the team, ready to go. Maybe they do end up trading him and all this is in vain, but I think it's smart to put him on the franchise tag. He's a former fifth round pick who has $4 million career earnings before taxes and all that crap. And now he's getting $16 million. So for him, it's a little different than a guy like Clowney. We've talked about that before, but I love Judon. I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's the best in the NFL or whatever, but I think he's very solid. I understand keeping him and wanting to keep him. I think he fits in their defense well. And it was a smart move to franchise tag him. And if he plays on the franchise tag, I'm all for that. Maybe he ends up, going somewhere else next year. They get a comp pick the following year, whatever. But I'm glad he's back for this season. I think they're a lot better off with him than without him. And he's like the 10th highest paid edge rusher this year. It's not like he's, crippling them by any means.
It was Todd Krakow, by the way, that we were looking for the Snyder comp. Googled that while you were talking. Judon, yeah, really good player for all the reasons that you mentioned. Pass rushing, not his strong suit 100%, because he also does dropping back, good run defender as well. Just I wouldn't say like jack of all trades necessarily, but he definitely has a unique skill set compared to the prototypical pass rusher that people are talking about. But for me, it comes down to like the fact that I just think he's going to be here for this year. He's going to play on the tag, and then he's going to leave. Because if you look at the guys they have coming down the pipeline, you got Stanley coming up. I'd pay Stanley over him. You got Humphrey coming up. I'd pay Humphrey over him. You got Jackson coming up. That's not even a question. You pay Jackson over him. He's just kind of like the odd man out at this point. And if he doesn't want to play on the tag, then whatever. I guess they'll figure it out. But I think he's going to play this season on the tag, and then he's gone, and that's it. And he's a really good player. It sucks to lose him, but at a certain point, you can only have so many young superstars on your team, and I think he's the odd man out at this point.
That might be the case, but again, they bought time to see, to evaluate another year, to measure all of those things. Does someone tear an ACL? Does someone, end up missing a ton of time? Does he get hurt? Does someone else get hurt?
Yeah, just saying
all that stuff plays into it.
Just saying as things stand, that's the way I see it. So if he were to go out and, all things being equal 2019 to 2020, that's the way it'll play out. But who knows what's going to happen, man? Who knows with COVID and everything and the way the 2020 season is going to ultimately look. The guy has a chance to potentially solidify himself a spot here for the long term, but we're going to see what happens.
Yes, and on a quick note off of that, I was going into PFF stats and looking up all this stuff, and I never really have looked at Tyus Bowser, and I'd never looked at like the coverage metrics necessarily for PFF, which there's like a specific, it's like not in the same category, whatever. It's a different page. And Tyus Bowser was literally the best edge in coverage last year of any of them that had any sort of significant coverage snaps. He dropped back into coverage on, I believe it was 75 snaps. He was only targeted 5 times, allowed 2 completions for 19 yards. When targeted, it was a 51.3 passer rating. That was the 3rd lowest among edge defenders. He allowed just 0.24 yards per snap in coverage. That was the best among all edge defenders, as well as 39 snaps. So 78 snaps he had. 39 snaps per reception allowed, which was also the best among edge defenders. And if there's a guy to pay early, like Tavon Young, like Nick Boyle, like Pat Ricard, it should have already been Tyus Bowser, in my opinion, and still can be before he possibly has a little bit better of a year with some more snaps. I think that Tyus Bowser should get paid a little bit, and you should keep him. And then when you're not so desperate, let's say Judon, does go, or some other negative thing happens. The Ravens are in a bind at the edge rusher position, and they obviously like guys that can cover. That's why Bowser and Judon are 2 of the 8 highest edge rushers in terms of coverage snaps. That is part of Wink's scheme defensively, and I think they should pay him, $6-7 million guaranteed a year pocket him before he might maybe blow up and keep him around. I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I actually see your point on that a lot. A dude who, again, very versatile, maybe not necessarily in the mold of a pure pass rusher, like maybe some people were even expecting coming out of Houston. He did have some coverage skills in college, but I think it's translated well to the NFL, like you mentioned there. And he really exploded onto the scene in 2017, and it kind of hasn't been the same for him since those first few couple of games where he was just making splash plays all over the field. So you'd maybe like to see him get back to that in some form, but even just a pretty serviceable, good season out of Tyus Bowser where he maybe get 5 or 6 sacks, makes a couple plays in coverage. I think that will be just the right amount to get him a little bit of a midway contract in the ways of Chuck Clark or Nick Boyle, like you mentioned. I think that would be a very interesting and astute move. Is that all we have on the tag?
That's all we got on the tag, my friend.
What else do we got here? I guess we touched on Chris Jones. So I guess we can close it out with our boy, Warren Sharp. He does a guide for the NFL. I don't know preview guide of the NFL. I don't know how long he's been doing it. I got my first one last year in 2019. Really great resource. I read the Ravens chapter last year and then tried to get as many teams in as I could, but it's pretty long and in depth. So for the purposes of this year, we're just going to be focusing on the Ravens. A couple of takeaways from it. It's a very interesting format, well presented, a lot of numbers thrown around, a lot of cool terminology. Warren is one of the absolute best in the business when it comes to the analytics side of things. And we're just a couple of year takeaways from reading the, I believe, 9 or 10 pages of the Ravens chapter of Warren Sharp's preview.
My first takeaway is that he is paid to consult for the Ravens and he won't admit it.
Yeah, no,
it's been so obvious now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's so obvious now. They obviously weigh analytics so heavily, which is smart. And the way Warren speaks about them is like a father speaking about a kid who just went 3 for 4 with a double, a home run, and a single, and 5 RBIs in a high school baseball game. Like, Warren Sharp loves the Ravens. His key takeaways are essentially that they need to be able to capitalize off of offensively. It was that they need to be able to capitalize off of defensive personnel more consistently, and that they didn't do that against the Titans. And the Ravens, I believe, ran the ball 53% of the time against 6-man, or when 6 DBs were on 6-man boxes. So a light box when there's just 6 DBs up or 6 defensive players up inside the hashes. And they averaged 7.2 yards per carry with like a 55% success rate. Then against the Titans, I have it in front of me somewhere. They basically didn't do that. They ran the ball 28% of the time in those situations. The Titans exclusively played the Ravens that way, almost more than really any other team had. They used light boxes, and the Ravens just didn't make them pay. And that allowed the Titans to keep playing the pass. And you can talk about maybe I just think that abandoning the run when you're a team that ran the ball better than 15 to 20 teams threw the ball wasn't a good idea. And just because you're down by 2 touchdowns with with plenty of time left in the game doesn't mean you abandon the ball. You got away from what helped you get there. And that was a major talking point for Warren Sharp in that sense. He loved the use of motion that the Ravens use, obviously. And my own personal thoughts on that I wrote an article about is that they need to throw more screens. And they have Willie Snead and Hollywood Brown on jet motion so much. They only had 2 pop passes. Both were to Hollywood Brown the entire season. They also just don't throw freaking screens. They threw 18 screens all season, and 10 of them came against the Cardinals and Bills. So more than half of their total screens for the year were in 2 games, both of which were wins. There's not really a correlation there. That's classic causation isn't correlation, but there's a ton of room for them with all the motion they use. And I think that Lamar spoke this season about how he needs to use the Tom Brady stuff more, the mental stuff more. He needs to have at the line checks, audibles, calls, a whole new tool belt of them, a lot more of them. I don't think he really ever did that much, to be honest. You don't see a ton of winks and nods and communication and touching the helmet and
a little connective tissue. That is something that really helped Flacco take off in 2011, I believe. He wasn't allowed to audible for like the first 3 years of his career under Cam Cameron. They finally let him start doing it in, I think, either 11 or 12. I know in 12 they started running the no huddle, and he got, started to be allowed to audible a little bit more. So I think that was something that helped him kick it in the next year. So I think that's a good point by you, but continue.
But yeah, so I think that is a point going off of some of the stuff Warren Sharp said, as well as lost my train of thought. Oh, tempo. The Ravens need to use more tempo. And I believe that they were really bad. And this was the Titans game brought out a lot of bad. And I put that video out of Lamar running the 2-minute drill before halftime, but it was so inefficient. They weren't getting up. They weren't getting to the line. And again, you just mentioned Flacco. When they started having an efficient tempo offense, it was awesome to see them get to the line, have 2-3 calls at a time, take 10 seconds, get another 2-3 calls in, go, push the pace. And those are two things that they need to really, really, really work on this offseason, incorporating the screen game with Lamar being able to check to them, as well as being able to run tempo. Because if they get to another situation in an important game where they're trailing and they just look like shit again, that's going to be really frustrating.
You don't want them pot committed to a bad strategy. Shout out to Molly's game. They were little pot committed to the passing game in that game. And I think that was a really interesting sort of way of putting it, in that he said that he understood kind of why they fell into that mindset of sort of having to pass and having to play catch up. He said he got it, but it just kind of wasn't the way to do it. You got to be more process based. That's a lot of what these analytics guys talk about, is just embracing the process, no matter how good or bad things are going. You just got to grind your way through it and hope for the best results. Didn't work out for that game, obviously, but I think just more of that in 2020 is going to be why the Ravens are continuing to be at the cutting edge of the analytics department. For me, I was taking a look specifically at I think I was tweeting about this, the first half leads. So I think he had that in there since 2010. Teams with the halftime lead, they go on to win more often than teams who win the turnover battle, which actually blew my mind.
They were both around 78% of the time, and it was slightly more for the halftime leads. The team who wins the turnover battle and the team who is leading at halftime wins. Yeah, and I think the Ravens only trailed at halftime against and won against the 49ers and the Steelers last year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was kind of my main takeaway from it, is just kind of that mentality of going out. And this is kind of a cliche that even goes back to my high school soccer team. My coach would always say, dominate the first 5-10 minutes. And we would sort of joke about that. It just sounds like a coach cliche, but just sort of getting out there and imposing your will a little bit. And maybe this is a thing that even goes against analytics, and that it kind of seems like a momentum argument or something like that. But I mean, the numbers seem to bear out that if you dominate in the first half, you go on to win the game. And that's definitely the defense. Getting turnovers in the first half are probably help to demoralize, help to, get the lead up for the Ravens early on, as do the offense, like you mentioned, running the ball. I think when they had dominant running games, they would walk out with the lead in the first half more often than not. So just kind of continuing to do what you do and dominate in the first half. I think you're talking about a head coaching gig for at least one of these two coordinators in 2021.
For sure. It'd be tough to see the whole coaching staff back again if the Ravens do win somewhere around 11 and a half games, which is what Warren Sharp has them at. His other thoughts are that the Ravens are going to score fewer touchdowns, but they also are going to play against a less quality defense as a whole in 2020 than they did in 2019. They faced a little tougher competition in his mind last year defensively. He wants them to target Marquise Brown. He says proceed with caution towards Mark Ingram in terms of fantasy. Then defensively, he just loved the blitzing. Love the blitzing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a staple of Wink, like we've been talking about, which is weird at this point to be saying that, because Wink has only been around for 2 years at this point, but he's just shown, this absolute dogged mentality of just send the guys, even, and I would say, especially in the crunch time moments, they win that game in 2018 by sending everyone and getting to Baker Mayfield. 2019 blitz heavy, I believe, against the Seahawks, and trying to just get the ball out and force turnovers late in games. That's not something you necessarily saw with Pease a lot, and it won them a couple games like Pittsburgh, like Seattle. So the defense is very impressive, not only just in blitzing, but I think overall aggression, going for that ball. I think Humphrey specifically deserves a little bit of a gold star for doing that peanut punch and trying to get that ball out. I think just having a nose for the ball and blitzing a whole lot is a very impressive aspect of the defense. So I'm glad he picked up on that.
Absolutely. And when you go ahead and look at his advanced passing table in terms of Lamar Jackson, you see some really good stuff that 10% of Lamar Jackson's passes were for 20 plus yards, which was higher than the NFL average at 8.9%. He had 46 completions of 20 or more yards, which was higher than the NFL average of 31. His 30 plus yard pass percentage was 4 when the NFL average was 3.6. So again, higher. His average air yards per completion were 6.7 over the average of 6.1 by other NFL passers. So all of those things end up summarizing that Lamar Jackson pushes the ball down the field. That vertical passing attack, the Ravens like to use vertical concepts to complement their downhill running game. And that's why I think in the end, again, it goes back to those screens, get the defense moving sideline to sideline a little bit so that you can attack them even more efficiently and effectively down the field, make them cover every blade of grass. And I think those are all things that the Ravens can utilize next year. And to be honest, Lamar Jackson really stunk on ice in his rookie year throwing screens. He was very inaccurate. I actually talked with Derek Clausen, QB class, who we've had on this podcast, about a specific play that I saw. And he basically said he straight up knows more about quarterback mechanics than I do. So that's why I said, hey, can you walk me through this? And he said that Lamar Jackson has a tendency to keep his front foot, not his plant foot, a little bit tight as opposed to a little bit wider. And when you do that, you have to overcompensate with your upper body, with your shoulders and with your arm, as opposed to being able to generate torque with your hips from a wider base. And that happened a little bit on deep passes. And I saw that a lot on screen passes in Lamar Jackson's rookie year. That's where his much fewer, but still a little bit present, ugly passes came from, where he didn't open up his front foot enough and allow himself to rotate from the hips. So I think that'll be a mechanical working point of Lamar Jackson moving forward. And it's just insane because, people are expecting him to regress from last year. And I think that the efficiency regression is likely as far as, touchdown pass percentage of 9%. You can't bet on that. People don't sustain that over a 2-year period very often. But then we have to go back and look at the volume and how many blowouts the Ravens won, how many times RG3 came in. Lamar sat out week 17. So for a fantasy outlook for Lamar Jackson, he's probably going to have more volume as a passer. He's probably going to play in some closer games. The Ravens are going to be really good again. We both think that, but it's just hard to think there's going to be 5 mega blowouts again to the point where RG3 is coming in like that. Games will be closer. When games are a little bit closer, passing volume tends to go up. So I think that the efficiency might take a step back. Maybe we don't see him have a 6-to-1 touchdown interception ratio again, but I think those yards are going to jump up. I think that completion percentage can still go up a little bit. I don't know if the touchdown percentage or the touchdown to interception ratio will be quite as high as it was, but I anticipate more yards. I anticipate the touchdowns to be similar. I'm excited. And the additions of Duvernay and Prochet in the end, and the departure of Hayden Hurst says they are going to rely on, some 11 personnel and maybe some lighter personnel at times, and having guys that can really push down the field. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for Prochet. I went back and looked a little bit more Prochet, and he's a really competitive route runner. He's very good at the release. And the Ravens Wire, Matthew Stevens actually did a really nice little write-up on James Prochet. They talked with David Robinson, who is an NFL star wide receiver trainer, has worked with all kinds of superstars, you name it. And David Robinson, that trainer, made a comparison of James Prochet to Jarvis Landry. And I really like that comparison a lot. Stylistically, maybe James Prochet doesn't end up being remotely as, big time 100 reception, 1,000-yard guy. He was a 6th-round pick, so it's hard to put that expectation. But Prochet's super competitive and quick and shifty and strong.
What I would say, a nose for the ball that you just cannot teach. Like, he just out-muscles guys at his size, which is not significant.
And he tracks the ball well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He goes up for it. He'll go down for it sometimes if he has to. Very creative with his body. So a lot of the traits are there. He's maybe not athletically the most gifted guy, but I don't know. Like, you see some of these late round receivers that, are just kind of technicians. They're not athletic.
Crafty.
Yeah, like Kelvin Harmon. He just tore his ACL, which sucks, but he had some production down in Washington last season. So, maybe something like that. A couple 100 yards, maybe a touchdown from Prochet.
It's not going to be a first. Prochet is not going to, it's going to be Hollywood. It's going to be Mark Andrews. It's going to be Snead still. There's Duvernay as well. And we love Duvernay, but Prochet is I just like that Jarvis Landry comparison. I like the release. I like the slot ability. I like the physicality. They don't have high top speed. They're not going to run away from you necessarily. They can just a little bit, but they're not just going to blow right past you. There's a lot of savvy there. There's hands there. There's physicality after the catch there. Blocking. They're tough blockers. I like the Jarvis Landry comparison stylistically for sure. And, the original point is Ravens are going to throw the ball a little bit more. And Lamar's another year in. And I mean, he's going into his year of being 23 years old now. And it's just crazy that he's so young still. This is his third season and already won an MVP, made so much strides last year. You've seen him throwing the ball. You've got Hollywood ready to be the number one receiver. And this passing game could look a lot different this year. And I'm here for it.
Absolutely. I agree with pretty much everything you just said there. Anything else on Warring Sharp or anything else that we've discussed in this episode?
Very curious about the linebackers, just generally. I really do kind of wish Josh Bynes was still in that room. Linebacker, they don't put I was about to say they don't put a ton of stock into him, but they just spent 2 high draft picks on them. So they do. And
they pretty much didn't for a while. And then they looked around. They're like, well, not a whole lot of needs on this team right now. Might as well just invest in linebacker.
Right. And I'm just curious. It's difficult to put a lot of stock into rookies. Especially at the linebacker position. Especially
right now with the fact that they're not in the building when they should have been, and training camp's going to be looking a lot different this year.
Absolutely. So it's tough to have really lofty expectations. Obviously, I've broken those guys down. Those were 2 guys that we covered a ton heading into the draft. I did speak very highly of, and then the Ravens walk away with them. But you just can't count on rookies, especially at certain positions, to have consistency. While the splash plays might be there, and linebacker is that position for me where it's rare. I mean, you see a Darius Leonard from time to time. CJ Mosley was really good as a rookie. That might have been his best season as a Raven. It's just tough. I mean, Devin White was awful at times last year. He turned it on in the second half, and he had some crazy splash plays. Devin White had a play where he completely ran himself out of a run concept. The running back, can't recall who he was playing, he chased 60 yards down the field and then stripped him from behind after basically blowing his assignment. So that consistency and processing isn't always there off the bat with rookies. So temper your expectations on them. There's going to be growing pains there. I would be shocked to see them, be guys that grade out from PFF really high, because consistency is really big with them and things like that. So, I would love to have Josh Bynes, because I went back, I charted all these screens. I basically watched the entire season, every snap again over the last month. Josh Bynes made a lot of fucking plays. He made a lot of really strong plays, especially in trash, in the wash, and ended a lot of plays for the opposing offense. And I really wish the Ravens re-signed him just for a little bit more veteran savvy, a little bit more reliability. LJ Fort, same kind of deal, did make a good bit of plays, but just temper expectations on the rookies. That's my closing piece for this episode.
Yeah, I think they might have went upside with Ford as opposed to the dependability of Bynes, which I guess we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Bynes, like you mentioned, definitely a playmaker. That first game that he was with the team against Pittsburgh, he picks off Rudolph, really turns the tide of that game and helps them to go on to win it. So, going to miss Josh Bynes and his veteran presence. And I'm going to miss you, bud, because I guess we've got to get out of here for at least this first episode that we are going to be recording for July the 17th. Really appreciate you guys listening into this one. For anyone watching on YouTube, we're going to be hanging around for another hour or so doing a mailbag. But for everyone listening today on July 17th, we're going to have another mailbag episode, which we're about to record for July 24th. So stay tuned for that. Really appreciate you guys listening. You can follow the show on Twitter at Podcast Beatdown. You can follow me at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. You can follow Spencer at Ravens for Dummies. That's the number 4 in the middle. And really appreciate you guys, and talk to you in a couple weeks. I'm going to be out of town here for the next week or so, and come back hopefully with a refreshed mindset and some good football news to discuss.
Absolutely. Hopefully everybody's in camp. One final piece from this episode is that there's a lot riding on the NBA, in my opinion. They had only 2 players test positive for COVID in the bubble. And if the NBA and MLB are able to start and get out to a good start, that's so good for the NFL. And that would be great for us.
Keep your fingers crossed. You've had a couple NBA players test positive, but hopefully they're able to get through that and the sport is able to push on. But either way, we will talk to you guys again very soon.
Wear your masks, get football back. See ya.
Stay safe, stay healthy, call your parents. Okay, there's hour 1. You want to go get a drink or anything? I think
I've got some water. Yeah, we can take a break for a second. You do whatever you need to do. I'm gonna run through these comments with our people we have.
All right, cool beans. Keep the people entertained.
So what do we got? We got Mr. Inappropriate Name trying to trick us off the bat. Garnet, love to have you. It did not see the Jay Gruden videos. Is that something that just happened like today, like in the last couple hours? MD Law So Hard. Yes. Stop sexual harassing and assaulting women. It's the kind of guy that does it. They're just freaking losers, and they'll always be that way. Cody, the Nike thing, love that. James Dolan does really, 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 really suck. Ingram is perfect, yes. And he was so funny when he was talking about his routes out of the backfield in that little video. Cody, you said JT blasphemy. I'm not sure who JT is. What else we got up in here? Duvernay runs a 4.38, but has 92 speed. Duvernay actually won the Texas 6A 100-meter championship in high school. So yeah, he's a fucking burner, and I'm excited to see that.
My guy, Devin Duvernay.
Double D, baby, double D. Tony Jefferson, probably trash at Madden. Love Tony though. Z was a role player in Baltimore. He was. He took starter snaps, 70% of snaps about, but he just, he's so much better at just sticking his hand in the dirt, going upfield, making plays in the backfield, and he can't cover. And I think they just wanted Judon because Judon can cover. They kind of, tie it back, and this is my tinfoil hat just a little bit again that always pokes out every episode, but they had Judon on the website and on posters and advertisements and billboards, and they never had Zadarius Smith on any of that shit. And I think you can really tell the direction they're going. I think it's the marketing is told what's going to happen ahead of time so that they can steer the fans that way. And that's why I knew that Joe Flacco wasn't going to start again. They took all the number 5 jerseys off the mannequins in the stadium and put number 8 jerseys on. And then it was Lamar. From that point forward, they marketed Lamar, put him out. And I think that's why the Ravens are smart. They run a business very much, but keep it. I mean, maybe it's biased, but Jake and I were talking early in the episode about having the balance between, the business capitalistic side versus the morality side of things. And I think they really struggled for a couple years with PR stuff around Ray Rice and a couple other things there, but feels like their whole home front has been solidified so much more in that way. Judon is a leader. Judon's kind of a goofy leader. Cody McGowan, you said Judon's a leader. I think they'll use the cap room in other places. That makes sense. Judon is a leader in a strange way, but he has a ton of energy. He was really close with Peanut and TJ, Tony Jefferson. Those were some of the council along with Anthony Levine and shit. So that was, I think it was really tough for him to watch Peanut and TJ both walk away. Those were his good buddies. Peanut's a weird player, man. I was thinking about him. A lot of players were tweeting about how underrated he is, but really had a fucking couple difficulties this past year. Tanner, Spenny's back. Thanks for the welcome back.
Shout out to Tanner up in Canada.
Tanner in Canada.
Tanner's up in Canada, eh? Gonna go down to Tim Hortons, then play a game of hockey and find out who's a hoser out there on the ice.
Like my boy Tanner in Canada, doing something dirtier than a janitor. Palm sweaty, leaning on the banister. I'll banish you.
Look at the bars on this kid. Is that Sammy?
Cheers, lads. Cody, cheers. I got some H2O. Jake's got some freaking
little Citradelic. The kid is T-minus probably a little less than 24 hours till I'm on vacation for a week. So I'm feeling the onions right now.
Where are you going? I didn't even ask you.
Just OC.
Nice.
Got a little comment.
Hell yeah. Aaron Askew, subtle flex with a 3-minute plank on Twitter.
Yeah, that was kind of. We have to discuss that. Your thirst trapping needs to be brought to light.
I'm just working on my craft, man.
It's like I'm just gonna casually plank here for 5 minutes and discuss some.
My honest thought process was I hate doing planks so much. I complain about them so much. Fran always has to hear me bitching about them. But
you were trying to show the tries off. It's okay.
The tries were. My arms did not look juicy there. That was front camera of my iPhone 7 Plus. But it distracts my mind because I did a longer plank by doing that than I ever would have done if I didn't. If I just sat there and stared at my phone at how long the time had gone, I would have fallen well before that. The Jets are just great value Ravens.
Yeah. That's been true for a while.
Yeah, they like to. They really do like what the Ravens do. The Jets think the Ravens are fucking tight.
Good for them. I appreciate
it. The Jets are Ravens fans.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my good buddy from work is a Jets fan. So it's a tough scene for my guy there.
At least they're not the Deadskins.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, with all that came out this week, maybe just count your blessings.
That guy Jordan who runs that account, Redskins Today, and I think he actually writes for their flagship website now too. He is like the best at spinning positive stuff of anyone. He's like so optimistic and so positive. Like his whole take on this whole situation is like, if there's anybody that has dealt with this similar situation before, it is Ron Rivera. He's the perfect man for the job to try and get the culture and spin the culture back around and yada, yada, yada. So he does a great job. I highly recommend following Redskins Today. He great account. Yeah, Joe Douglas does love his roots from Baltimore, Cody. You're right.
Cool. Anything else from the commenters, or are we just jumping into the next episode?
Let's do next episode. We got it. You guys can keep chiming on in. Mailbag's perfect for it for comments.
Till the next episode. It's like this and like that and like this and like this and like that and like that and it's like this and like this and like that. So just chill till the next episode. Okay, I'm done. All right.
Dr. DRE.
Dr. Dre, motherfucker. Come on, audition.
Tom Pelissero, what happens if no deal is struck on economics? A projected multi-billion revenue shortfall in 2020 would be accounted for in 2021, causing the salary cap to drop in the range of 50 million to 70 million per club.
That's wild, man.
League wants a deal done before camp. It's such bullshit. The owners are being so deceitful.
I guess we're going to discuss that. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown Podcast. It is Friday, July 24th, as you're listening to this. As we are recording this, it is Thursday, July 16th. So a little bit of a time warp situation going on here for us right now.
It is a time warp a la 100.7 The Bay, Baltimore's greatest radio station.
Got to get time to get the let out.
What is the really good host name?
I don't know what their names really, or it's been a while since I did, but
one guy is the best. Slash,
maybe, yeah, you were correct though. Stretch, maybe, who knows? But you were correct that is the best radio station in this great area.
Yes, 100%. 100.7 The Bay.
Get the let out.
So good. Such a good radio station. I've also noticed, I don't know if they're owned by the same company, but like if you're in North Carolina, it's like 98.7 The River. Like it's always the body of water locally.
That's a thing. Yeah, that's a thing for the South. I remember when I was driving through Richmond, I think they had The River going. They have one up in called The River.
Whatever the local body of water is, if it's a bay, if it's a river, if it's a lake or something, it's like that, and then it's the classic rock station. It's actually so sick.
The Bay is actually probably the tightest name I could think of, though. Like especially for there's not a lot of Bay cities in the world. Like you got here in San Francisco,
Redskins, now the Bays,
the Washington Bays.
Nah, it doesn't.
Yeah, we'd have to workshop that. Maybe you do it with an E, so it's like appeals to the meme culture. But yeah, who knows? Who could say? But yeah, the Bay, a tremendous name, tremendous radio station. Get the let out. 2 for Tuesday.
2 for Tuesday is the best.
2 for Tuesday. Yeah, it's sick.
My old roommate, also named Jake, actually won. He would perfectly be driving to work. He was a gym teacher. Would perfectly be driving to work when they had the 2 for Tuesday trivia. He won tickets and took me to see Asia and Journey at Rofo Center. We got tickets to Bill Burr. He won like 6 times and would use different names and then go pick the tickets up. He was unbelievable at it. I
wasn't sure what reference to make there or what impression to do because I was going to jump into a Journey song. Then you said Bill Burr, and I was like, "Am I going to do a Bill Burr impression here?" And it was just the meme where the head is like exploding in front of the computer.
If you can do a Bill Burr Journey impression, you're Hall of Fame, but I don't know if that's possible.
Okay, let's not start this show. All right. I'm not a small town girl sitting here over in a lonely fucking world, listening to you talking to me about how there's just strangers in the night up and down the street. All right. I just watch the TV and I tell them where the smoky rooms are. That's all I give a fuck about.
A+.
I maybe lost it a little bit there, but I tried.
It was A+. That was fantastic.
Good. Thank you.
Yes. So we are now in the second episode of our
second hour. A lot of radio talk in this episode. It's like the second hour of a radio show, kind of.
Very true. Very, very, very true. But we are on the second handle of the panhandle now. We are moving into the mailbag. So we recorded 2 for 1. We told you guys that at the end of last week's episode. Now we are moving on. So this episode is covering Jake going on vacation, as he very much deserves, the hardworking boy himself. And we wanted to do an evergreen episode for that exact reason. There are many things going on in the NFL, much going on in the world, but we got a lot of things that were more related to evergreen topics, a lot of happy questions, a lot of happy stuff. So we're really excited to get some mailbag in. Had a lot of good questions this week, and I'm excited for it.
Big positive vibes. I like it a lot. I love evergreen questions. Give us a chance to dive into maybe not more personal stuff, but if you want to send in something like that, maybe we'll listen to it and read it off and answer it for you. If you want to do something completely random, I think I saw a movie question in there, which obviously we're big fans of. So it's gonna be fun, man. Let's get weird.
All right. Without further ado, let's get down to it. A couple more trickled in that I didn't post earlier, so I'm excited. The first one's going to get your blood pumping immediately. It's from our boy Joe Boken Ninja JC. He said, what are the top 3 Baltimore traditions?
Man, that's a good one. That's a really
crab
good
cakes, football, Natty Bo.
Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does, right?
Obviously, crabs, Baltimore tradition. You have to throw crabs in there.
Old Bay on the can of the Natty Bo.
Old Bay on the can.
They put it around. It's like a salted rim.
Lacrosse. It's actually lacrosse.
Yeah, lacrosse. Yeah, definitely. Horse racing.
Having longish hair in high school.
Yes, that was
having flow.
The kid had a Bieber cut back in the day. It was not a good
of course.
Horse racing is definitely it's maybe not as big maybe as it once was, but I love the fact that I grew up in horse country and the area surrounding is all horse country. It's very beautiful, yes. One thing, and I love the horse racing culture. I actually rode horses for a little bit when I was 12 years old, that's
so sick. I've never been on a horse.
It's not something many people know about me, but it was a very fun time. I like horses a lot.
It's awesome that we're still learning new things about each of us after we're well into our second year doing this.
We're like a good couple. We just find ways to continue to spice things up.
Spicing it up. That's a Baltimore tradition, spicing it up. What else? There's other shit that we're not that we're going to think about.
I've never been. A lot of people seem to like it.
Wait, what?
Artscape
I've never been either, but it does look like a lot of fun. Let's pin this one and keep coming back to it throughout the episode because we're missing a lot that's going to come to me later.
Sure.
So we'll keep revisiting that.
That's a good one.
Yes, very much so. Moving on. Raven for life, baby. Is it normal opinion to think Brady is just a system quarterback and that he's overrated? So I actually subscribed to that thought process that he was a system quarterback and that it was all Bill Belichick for a long, long, long time.
I could see you being one of those guys, yeah.
Yes, but it was college. I had a couple friends that were big time Patriots fans, and I used to be like, "Oh, Matt." My big argument was that Matt Castle threw for 3,500 yards, 20-some touchdowns, and went 11-5.
You're also a big galaxy brain guy. You get way deep into the weeds with some of this stuff, so I could see you getting mega galaxy brain on this.
100%. But at this point, I mean, he did it for so long, man. He had multiple offensive coordinators. I think Brady was so underrated this past year in 2019 with no offensive line, no dynamic playmakers. He had no good tight ends. His backs were good receivers, but no one that could really bust out and carry a actual load. Edelman is a slot receiver. Edelman's a great player, but nothing crazy. And I think Brady was still really good. Did great things this past year.
Yeah, it was a thing where it was the perfect system. A lot of things were built perfectly around him, but just the stories you hear about the guy, reading some of those books written by Michael Hawley, who was, I think, a reporter in the area. He's written a couple good books on the Patriots that everyone should go read if you're interested in that kind of thing. The guy's just an absolute worker. He's a grind boy. You watch that Brady 6 documentary on him, you can tell there's just something different going on in that guy's head. Similar maybe only to like Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan, where it's like, I'm just going to work my ass off to beat everyone else. And I think it's almost more perfect that he is not the most physically talented. Like, I'm of the opinion that Aaron Rodgers at his peak is the most talented, best quarterback that I've ever seen. I think Mahomes is going to have, be in that conversation very soon. But Brady just has the better resume because he's just incredibly measured, incredibly smart player, does what he needs to do. And for that reason, and also the reason that he wasn't a good system, but I think largely to his credit, he was able to get 6 Super Bowl rings out of it. And in my opinion, greatest quarterback of all time.
The system is Tom Brady's brain, is like his processing ability and ability to process information, make adjustments, changes the line of scrimmage. Like, he is a lot of his teammates say that it's impossible for fans to understand how good he is at checking into run plays, like how good he is at understanding line of scrimmage and doing those things. So I think the system is Brady, actually. In many ways, his ability to process information. So moving on, we don't want to. We have a lot, so we're not going to stick on that one too long. But we got somewhat deep.
This is a radio show. Spending like 45 minutes talking about Tom Brady as a system quarterback or not would be a pretty good use of our time.
Oh, absolutely. But moving on, Francesca. Shout out to the franchise. What should Washington, she's a Washington Redskins, former Redskins fan, what should their new name be? And then she said, or is that against the rules? Because she wasn't sure if we only talk Ravens on this.
No, it's only Ravens, Fran. You're not allowed to talk any other team or any other topic at all, especially not Joe Rogan.
Nope, not Joe Rogan. This is not the Joe Rogan podcast. That's actually our new podcast name. They should be
there actually is a podcast about Joe Rogan podcast. I forget what it's
really
called. Yeah,
that's actually a good idea.
It's pretty. I hope one day that I have a very successful podcast, maybe this one, and there's a podcast about this podcast.
That'd be tight. That'd be so dope. Red Wolves. I love Red Wolves. We touched on it last episode. I think it kind of pays a little bit of homage to the Redskins. Wolves are very prevalent in a lot of Native American tribes and cultures. They are a sign of strength, of like medicine, I think, too, and family because of the wolf pack. Plus, you get to howl on third down. I know PFT is huge into that. That's why it ties into the Reddit description of us being like kind of like PFT and appealing to 18 to 35, or PMT and appealing to 18 to 35-year-olds. But the howling on third down is such a good idea. I love that.
Just think about how many hangover references you could get off. Dude, the wolf pack is out there today. Do you remember the time that Bradley Cooper was really hungover with his buddies?
I think it's just such a, like, it reminds me of the Bucks almost. Like, you can really play into the Wolves thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the name. It's gaining a lot of steam publicly, but as I say that, they're probably going to come out with something totally random that a lot of people.
I saw something from a legitimate source that was like the Wind Talkers or something fucking nuts. That was like,
touch that. No.
That was like super into Native American culture, like the Wind Talkers.
So Wind Talkers were Navajo tribesmen in World War II, and they used they used their language as code between U.S. military because I believe they were in the Japanese front, and the Japanese couldn't interpret that, obviously. So yeah, it's interesting.
Cody McGowan commented, "The Baltimore Beatdown experience."
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's crazy watching a guy like Lamar, man. He just gets into like this flow state that you only see in a couple other quarterbacks. I mean, you talk about a guy like Vic in his prime, fucking insane, man. Jamie, see if you can pull up that video of Vic in 2004, not from real life, but in the video game, when he does that fucking spin move and then he runs 99 yards down the field on a broken leg. Or fuck, that might have been like the Donald Driver or something. But Jamie, see if you can pull that Donald Driver, put the team on my back video. But yeah, what were we talking about?
The Baltimore Beatdown experience. So yeah, the Wind Talkers, I don't know. Red Wolves, go for that. Moving on, Otavio Moller. Since we use so much motion, as in the Ravens use so much motion, with timing being so important, can empty stadiums be a good thing? That's a hard question. So because the stadiums are empty, do you think
I think it boils down to the fact that home field advantage can really affect an away team that relies heavily on communication at the line, or when you're about to, call an audible, or when you are an offense that relies heavily on something like that. So if you're running a lot of motion, maybe it's kind of tough to get the timing right when you don't hear the quarterback yelling at you or something. So yeah, I think that's a astute observation. I think the home field advantage thing is going to be kind of a sneaky big factor in that offenses are going to be able to communicate a lot more effectively than they were able to in years past.
Yes. So the one I've had a mixed bag on what crowd noise actually, like how it actually physically affects communication. And something that I've gathered is that offenses go silent count against a lot of crowd noise and stuff, or like the center will, like the guard will wave for the center, that kind of stuff. I swear to God, the Ravens have sucked defensively at home because of crowd noise and because they've had so many new players on defense over the last 2 years. I swear whenever it gets really loud, they've let up big plays way more than they used to because they don't have a ton of continuity on defense. Earl and Chuck Clark are doing all these crazy hand signals, trying to talk and stuff. So I think that it actually can mess up the home team's defense a little bit, but I think it gets your juices flowing, and it does play some sort of psychological intimidation factor against the offense at the same time.
It's going to be just sort of pure football. It's going to be watching a scrimmage kind of.
Yes, and I love that. That would be fun for you.
It's going to be a total chess game.
I'm very sad. I was thinking about it. There was something that I thought of. Oh, you were mentioning the best quarterback you've seen, Aaron Rodgers, and I was about to say I'm so excited to see Patrick Mahomes this year in Baltimore and see him live because he does have such unbelievable arm talent. I was and then it almost made a tear come into my eye because I was like, oh my God, I might not be able to go to games and there might not be a season. I was like, oh my God. So that was a touchy subject, but moving on, the great Josh B. This is the one we discussed last episode. Help me settle an argument. Who's the better player, Myles Garrett or TJ Watt? Who you got, Jake?
I would go Myles Garrett, probably by a decent margin. I think he's just such a force of a pass rusher, so physically talented, and he's gotten more technically refined throughout his couple of years in the league. Just got paid, very much deserved. Don't know what's going on with the temper issues. Hopefully he can get that all together in line. But I think mostly his body of work seems to suggest that he is a good dude, but just absolutely explosive off the line, has a lot of physical attributes that you can't teach, which I tend towards a little bit. But TJ Watt, very good player in his own right. A dude who is a beast of a pass rusher, but like we mentioned, can also drop back, has a little bit of a nose for the ball, very effective at outside linebacker. So kind of almost different positions in a way, but I would definitely go Myles Garrett.
Definitely different positions, and I do think TJ Watt is very good. I'm just thinking about it from the perspective of I have to block one who's more difficult to block. If I'm an offensive lineman in the NFL, not me, they'll both fucking ramsack my dumb ass. But I'm going to go Myles Garrett just because, as you said, I agree. I think that he is such a physical presence, and I think he's getting better and better. And I think that he just has I think if you polled NFL GMs, that classic thing that's been going on lately, I think they would take Myles Garrett somewhat solidly because he really is a force, is so developed. And Watt is able to dip around the edge and do a lot of things a little bit different. They do play different positions. They do have different body types. But I'm going to go with Myles Garrett. I think he's a little bit more dominant. And it's funny.
Kind of what he's weirdly, I think, and Clowney's a great player, but in different ways than I think people thought. I think Garrett is what a lot of people thought Clowney was going to be coming into the league.
Yes, I agree with that. The explosive, just strength.
Run right through you, just absolutely beast of an athlete.
Yes, and it's funny because really Orlando Brown shat on TJ Watt several times, and I remember Ronnie Stanley got upset because Baldy made a Twitter video that was 5 minutes, and it was the one rep the entire game that Myles Garrett beat Ronnie Stanley. It was the Ravens threw the ball 40 times because they lost to the Browns in week 4. It was the one rep that he beat Ronnie Stanley, and Ronnie Stanley was shaking my head. You can beat a guy 90. You can be as a left tackle. You can beat a guy 99 out of 100 times, but the one time will end up on Twitter. And
Let's take a look here. Myles Garrett, defensive end for the Browns, number 95, going up against Ronnie Stanley, all-pro.
Ronnie Stanley,
Baltimore Ravens. Take a look at my pinky here.
It's crooked, man. I played football.
Big Baldy guy.
Love Baldy. I want to get a Baldy Breakdowns hat, actually.
We got to get those some way or another.
So B Rose 931, our fucking boy, asked
in the chat right now, I think.
Probably asked a plethora of questions. I'm going to rattle them all off. I'm going to go straight through, so just take it all in for a second. How would you feel if we signed Jordan Reed? Hot take. I never want to hear Matt Burke's opinion on anything outside of football. That's so funny. We don't even need to talk about that one. We both agree. Yes, that's hilarious. What's more revolting, a microwaved pile of dog shit or the Washington Redskins? What's a critically acclaimed movie that you think is overrated? And then there's a second set he gave us. Do the Ravens sweep the NFC East, and do they sweep the AFC North? Any realistic possible signings you could see before the season starts? And if Jalen Ferguson and Bowser both record double-digit sacks, is Judon gone in 2021? So B-Rose gave us all kinds of questions.
Jeez, he just took half his hand. Now he's out like a light. He just absolutely went sicko mode on this. What are we going to start with here?
All right, Jordan Reed.
Reed, no, I don't want him to see play football again. I like the guy. He seems like a really good player, but for the sake of his own well-being, I kind of hope he stops playing. He can do whatever he wants. If he wants to play, I'm not going to begrudge him, but too many concussions there, bud. Let's call it quits.
B-Rose is here. There he is.
There he is.
Love it. What's more revolting, a microwave pile of dog shit or the Redskins? I'm going to say a pile of dog shit.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that too. Just from a pragmatic standpoint, it just seems like a pile of dog shit in a microwave, not something the kid really wants to experience too much.
Nope. I could do without that smell. Redskins are not much better right now, though. Formerly the Redskins. Matt Burke, yeah, he's like a light version of Aubrey Huff.
Sort of, yeah. He's not nearly as vocal, but
not nearly like big of a misogynist prick.
No, I think he's a guy who just grew up a certain way, and he just never really got a different worldview. And I mean, talk about all this controversy around going to the White House after winning a championship. Matt Burke, actually the OG of that, didn't go because of Obama, who, noted gay marriage hero Obama, who was against gay marriage actually when he first got elected, but we don't have to get into that. Yeah.
Boom. Then let's go to the bottom ones, because you know which question I want to finish with. And I'm giving us some time here. Any possible realistic signings? I mean, Taylor Gabriel. There you go.
That's actually a really good one.
Taylor Gabriel. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. If Jalen Ferguson and Tyus Bowser both have 10 sack seasons, is Judon gone? I'm going to say yes. And the Ravens win the Super Bowl if both of those players have 10 plus sacks.
That's actually a good way of putting it. I agree. I think he's probably going to be gone more likely than not, regardless.
Tough call. Do the Ravens sweep the NFC East? I'm going to say no.
You got the Cowboys and Giants at home. I think you probably win both of those. You got the Washington, formerly known as the Dan Snyders, presented to you by FedEx.
Washington Win Talkers.
I'm going to go with a win there. Eagles, I think you lose to them on the road.
That's arguably the toughest game of the season, is the Eagles on the road. One of them, especially outside the division. Do the Ravens sweep their own division? The Browns have been giving them a lot of trouble, man. Even up until the end of that first half in the second one last year.
I honestly think they have a chance to split at the very least every game with the other teams. I think Cincy packing a little bit of firepower there on offense. Maybe they get rolling.
Cincy can sneak up on you for sure.
I think they're probably going to sweep the Bengals, but I think I'm going
to say 4-2 in the division.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The Steelers have been getting pummeled by the Ravens for too long. They have to win one. They have to win.
I go Steelers win one, Cleveland wins one. We're just doing a little schedule analysis here. I like it.
Yes, I agree. I like that. Split with those two. Probably sweep the Bengals. Bengals could sneak up on you if the Ravens are kind of less than that, what we expect. What else did we have? That leaves us to the best question, our favorite question. What is a critically acclaimed movie that you think is overrated?
I don't even know if it's critically acclaimed or if it's more cult status at this point, but I just and I do need to watch it again. I need to give it another chance, and it's weird because this movie is right up my alley, but I'm just not a big Heat guy.
Heat's, I'm with you there for the most part.
Also, I don't know among our demographic if this would get me killed, but older people for sure. The Godfather's fine. Like, it's a really good movie. It laid the groundwork for a lot of movies that came after it, like Goodfellas, that are just quite frankly way better than it. But yeah, Heat and The Godfather, two of ones that are beloved, and I'm just a little not all the way there on.
I love the second Godfather, Part 2.
That's kind of sick. The problem is I've never seen that one all the way through. So I've definitely seen the first one all the way through. And then the second one I got exposed to through that Godfather saga that they released on HBO a couple years ago, where they released all the movies in chronological order as like one long series. So I saw like elements of it, and I thought it was really cool when De Niro, I forget his character's name. I think he plays the Don in the second movie when he's younger. So I thought all that stuff was really cool. But yeah. Haven't seen Titanic then. I do need to watch that. That's on the list. I've started a list actually.
I want to say like the movie, like I don't like the Cars series that much.
The what?
The Cars, like the Pixar movies. I don't like those that much.
Cars?
I'm going through here and trying to see what movies I'd also, what movie I think is better, even better than like anyone realizes, is Deer Hunter. I fucking love Deer Hunter.
I've heard that's quite an experience.
It's 4 hours. It's insanely good. B-Rose, you said Titanic. You said very overrated. I won't say it's incredibly overrated, but I think it is a smidge overrated. It gets pretty dry towards the middle. I've
actually never seen that all the way through, I don't think. So I need to see that.
I also think that the movie that's most like on par is Good Will Hunting. I think Good Will Hunting is good as fuck.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, I started my own movie list that our boy Matt has been doing throughout quarantine. He started his follow at @m_pine on Twitter to get a look at that. I've started my own, so I think you should start one of your own as well. We'll get you doing that once you're done grinding the tape, which is never. But yeah, I'm going to have a lot more movie takes, I think, moving forward.
Have you seen Vertigo? Alfred Hitchcock?
Vertigo? No.
I would highly recommend watching Vertigo and what is the other one that I like? I think I passed it. Hold on, I'm going to have to look it up. I'm going to have a bad moment of radio right now.
I also just sent you a tweet. We're not going to be reading it on the air, but you need to read it.
Okay, I will. Psycho, no. Birds, I've seen.
I've seen both of those.
There's one that takes place in San Francisco where it's like oh my God, what is it called? I'm blanking. I'm gonna move past it. I'll come back to it, but I would highly recommend those Alfred Hitchcock movies. B-Rose said Deer Hunter is one of my favorite De Niro movies. Deer Hunter is my favorite De Niro movie. Taxi.
They have that scene in Call of Duty Black Ops, which is set in Vietnam to a certain extent, where you're doing the roulette, and I know that's inspired by Deer Hunter, which I thought that scene was sick. So I'll definitely check that movie out.
Yeah. Oh, I actually haven't seen Psycho. I need to watch Psycho.
It's pretty good. Don't watch the Vince Vaughn version.
Good God, I can't even imagine. I'm really blanking on which movie this is. But anyway, moving back into the mailbag. Thank you, B-Rose, for those fantastic questions. Moving along, Adam Jones 357, the 5-time Gold Glover, asks, top 5 quarterbacks in order if they raced in a 40-yard dash with no training. So if they just like ran right now, I think RG3 smokes them all.
I'd go probably RG3 1, Lamar 2, Deshaun 3, Vic 4.
Right now, you think Vic still?
That dude is a fucking gazelle. Still,
I think definitely he is faster than any of the other ones ever were in his prime. I also think Kyler might beat Lamar in a straight line.
Kyler's in there too. So those are my 5. But maybe I'm being a little bit biased. I don't know if you've seen the show Atlanta, but there's a funny segment in season 2 of that show where it's the end of the episode and Childish Gambino is feeling pissed off about all the L's he's taken throughout it, and they're walking out of a nightclub, and Michael Vick is auspiciously racing people out there for money, and Childish Gambino wants to take him on and see if he can win, and he loses. Pretty funny.
B-Rose said, is Rear Window the movie I'm thinking of? If that takes place in San Francisco, then yes, it is. And
is that Hitchcock?
Yes, it's Hitchcock. I can't remember. I'm blanking on it. I'll figure it out later. But
the thing about the rear window is that it's the window in the rear.
That's true. It is the window in the rear. Freddie Consulting asks, can a real Ravens fan hate the Patriots more than they hate the Steelers? Thoughts?
I think I probably did for a little while. I think the Ravens-Steelers rivalry, we've talked about it before, but it's kind of like how in soccer in Europe, they have rivalries that go back like hundreds of years, and they call those like the derby games. And then like they also call derby games to like the real rivalries of teams that are like really in the mix and like kind of going after each other in terms of standings. So I think for a little while there, especially like circa 2014-ish, I probably hated the Patriots a little more significantly than I did the Steelers just because it was a little bit different. But I think you're always going to have that hatred for the Steelers in your heart. That's fine. And other teams are going to pop up. And, you know, it's natural to question things a little bit.
I think that you can hate the Patriots more. The Patriots were really annoying at one point. The Steelers rivalry has like dwindled at times a little bit. I think it definitely isn't now what it used to be. Really, Ravens haven't played the Patriots that much lately, and the rivalry with the Steelers hasn't been like the Marlon fumble Juju touchdown game was really good for the Ravens-Steelers rivalry. That was Lamar's worst game as a professional, in my opinion. It was back and forth. Heinz Field was super rocking, and we didn't know that the Steelers like weren't going to be able to make it to the playoffs yet. The division was still up for grabs. The Ravens had just lost two in a row, so that one was definitely good for the rivalry. But I can absolutely understand hating the Patriots right now. B-Rose says Cleveland is the top of his hate list. Mine's KC. I hate KC right now. I loathe KC.
Who is mine? I'm just not much of a hateful person is the problem.
That's not true. Some shit gets you really going.
Some things do, but like sports,
it's like we like little small things that like into your like.
That's a good summation of my psyche. But I think like sports rivalries or like things like that, kind of maybe not so much.
You appreciate them a lot.
I do. Yeah, I do. I love the tradition of it. So I think I love the Ravens-Steelers rivalry the most. So I think as like just all the way, I think Steelers would still hold my top spot. Cleveland fans did really piss me off for a stretch there.
The Browns are like the new rival. The Browns talk a lot of the Browns fans talk a lot of shit.
And I think they have a chance to actually make good on some of that promise this year. So maybe the Browns going to be vaulting up a little bit.
I think that the Chiefs and the Browns are the two that get me riled up the most.
I think the Chiefs Ravens fans really like dumbass delusional fans.
And I stopped being mad with Chiefs fans because they won their Super Bowl, first one of many of their lifetimes, and like Andy Reid, I really appreciate that Andy Reid finally got it done. Love Andy Reid. I have no qualm with him at all. They are like twisted fans. Both of those the Browns fans have completely died. Like last year was insufferable with the Browns fans. And the Ravens fan of me was like, how can you still be like this? And now they're going into 3 years, 3 different coaches, 3 different offensive coordinators for Baker, which is very tough, even though they're loaded on paper. So I think they've kind of taken a step back. So I'm not crazy irritated, but the make him throw thing with Lamar, that touched my spine the wrong way. That rubbed me the wrong way. And
that's what got me
happy when they blew the Browns up.
With the Browns, it was the fans and like Baker. Like I used to like him back in college, but I'm getting a little old and like he's just kind of a douche. Like, or at least he was for a while, and that sort of rubbed me the wrong way going into last year. So kind of seeing him fall on his face a little bit, eat a little bit of humble pie. It's not the worst thing, but to his credit, I think he's done a good job of staying quiet mostly for the most part, and I think he spoke up on behalf of some of the Black Lives Matter issues, which I think was pretty impressive. Not something I expected from a kid coming from oil money from Lake Travis, Texas. So good for him in that respect, standing up for some of his teammates.
Yeah, for sure.
I've turned around on Baker a little bit in that regard. Mahomes, I've always liked. I loved him coming out of Texas Tech. I still really like him. I think he's a little bit of and this is kind of through no fault of his own, but he's kind of the Steph Curry player right now where everyone is just constantly talking about him. And so, like I said, through no fault of his own, that kind of irritates me to begin with. But
no-look pass is equivalent to like the deep three. Like it's a thing now. Like that is the comparison.
Yeah, kind of. He's just like a street baller, and like he does a lot of cool shit, and it's great. Like if I were 14 years old, I'd be all the way into that kind of stuff. And
love Mahomes off the field. Hate him when I watch him play because he's such a whiny little crybaby about penalties.
Yeah, he definitely can get a little too into the ref's pocket sometimes. So I'm with you on that. But
that's why I have respect for Big Ben in some ways, because he never is like that and takes such a beating always.
Well, here's where we get sort of into the NFL versus real life stuff.
Yes.
I'm just not ever going to be a Big Ben fan. I respect him as a player, but just as a person, can't do it. Mahomes seems like, by all accounts, a really great guy. Some antics on the field, doesn't really do too much for me. I'm fine with the Chiefs.
Brox12 asks 5 best movies of all time. Personally, mine are Lord of the Rings 2 and 3. So best movie to me is the movies that if I could only watch 5 of them ever again. I always take these kinds of questions. If I could only watch 5 movies again, what would they be?
That's a good way.
I know that on my list, I would definitely have Good Will Hunting. Then from there, it's tough.
Goodfellas is on there for me. That's my favorite movie of all time.
Goodfellas is a good one. I don't know if I would take it. I like The Departed. I'm not sure if I put it on there.
The Departed.
Django.
I love The Departed, but it's kind of a cartoon of a movie.
Yes. Django is on there for me.
Okay.
I love Django.
Goodfellas. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is probably my favorite Tarantino movie.
I'll put that on there too. I do really like Once Upon a Time.
Inglourious Basterds. It's fucking right up there. I might just put that on there too. So
give us all the good mob movies and all the Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yeah, I mean,
constitutes.
So you've got those two. What else is there? What else? Social Network. I'm starting to really come to the realization that is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It is a really good movie for sure.
Probably put that in
Actually, going back to what B-Rose asked us earlier, movie that I think is slightly overrated, Almost Famous. I think I might be sick of it.
And I need to see that all the way through. I don't know how I haven't. I've been circling it for literally forever. But yeah, that movie seems cool.
I could watch Gladiator quite a bit.
Gladiator's fine. I like it. Superbad would probably be like the comedy pick. Or no, actually, Dazed and Confused would probably be the comedy pick for me.
Superbad's not a bad one.
If I had to pick between those two, I'd go Dazed, but it'd be just slightly. So I got Goodfellas, Once Upon a Time, Dazed and Confused.
Dark Knight is a good one to watch forever and ever.
I'd probably put Dark Knight on there.
Big Lebowski. I'm looking through a list right now. I'm cheating.
That's fine.
Big Lebowski is really good. Saving Private Ryan's really good.
That's definitely.
I also think I think that The Matrix is underappreciated. Hot take.
For me, my 5th movie, I'd go Fargo. I don't know your thoughts on that movie, but
I've never watched the movie all the way through.
It is one of my.
I watched the show, and the show is incredible in the first season.
The show is so fucking good. I don't know if
We've talked about that on here before. We've talked about this on here before.
Yeah, so the show is one of my favorite shows of all time. The movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. So that would probably be my list.
Fight Club, pretty good.
Fight Club's pretty sick. I actually just saw that for the first time the other.
Ferris Bueller is probably actually legitimately on my list.
That's close for me. That would be if I didn't pick Dazed. That's kind of in that category.
I also I won't put it on there, but movie that everyone needs to watch is Blade Runner 2049. One of the most underrated movies.
I've heard that's really great.
Really good. You don't have to watch the first one to exactly know, but I would recommend kind of Googling the original Blade Runner first.
Yeah, Swingers is in that comedy category for me too. It's kind
Jaws,
of more modest.
Silence of the Lambs. Fuck.
You know what I just watched the other day that you should watch? Mississippi Grind on Netflix.
Is that McConaughey?
No, it's Ryan Reynolds.
Interstellar's on my 5. Interstellar's on my 5.
All right.
100%.
Murph. We're going to the Tesseract here. We're gonna. You got a Tesseract? Be a lot cooler if you did.
Pulp Fiction, obviously. Shawshank, obviously. The tough question. These are all the movies we love. If you haven't seen any of those movies that we just listed, go on with your bad self and watch them. Tough to narrow it down. Thank you for asking the question. Love the movie questions. Otavio Molaire asked, between Bradley Bozeman, Ben Powers, Ben Bredesen, Tyre Phillips, who can be a Pro Bowler?
Tyre Phillips.
Tyre Phillips.
He's just a tire?
Yep, he's a big-ass tire. Roll right over you.
Are they saying who would be? You got my boy Eric chiming in there with Training Day. Haven't seen that in too long. I got to watch that again.
Training Day is really good.
Denzel, one of the great stars of the 21st century and before.
The movie, I like that with Denzel. My favorite is whichever movie his son is sick in the hospital and he takes everyone.
I think you're thinking of.
Yes, that is a fantastic movie.
Good one.
Between those four, I'm going to go with Ben Bredesen. I think that he has the pedigree. I think that he has the consistency. I think that he has the grit. And I think he's a little bit of a technician and a little bit mobile.
I agree. He kind of seems like that sort of jack of all trades type of guy that you're sort of, I don't know if you'd say lucky, but that's kind of what you look for in a fourth rounder, just a guy who's solid all around. And just the virtues extolled upon this guy by our guy Cole Jackson, who we both really respect very much. I'm willing to trust his opinion. I think Bredesen is a good pick there.
I think that Bredesen has that like Yanda-ish, like gritty attitude too.
He's a Midwestern boy. He's just growing up in cornfields, like fighting.
I think he has that attitude too, and so does Tyree Phillips a bit. Powers, I think he's an incredible pass blocker. I feel like he's like an above average starter. And Bradley Bozeman, I think I underappreciate Bradley Bozeman possibly a little bit, but I think he's just a little bit too limited athletically, but I like what he did last year.
He's a good rotational interior guy. And yeah, I like his mentality. We'll see what happens with him.
We will see what happens. Clueless. My buddy Adam Clue says, do you think that Lamar and Daniel Jones are boys?
I hope so, man. I feel like that's a great buddy cop movie waiting to be written.
Oh, that would be
swag for days. The other one couldn't spell swag if it was written on a wall in front of him when he was putting on his Brooks Brothers button down to go to his job at a failing hedge fund.
Oh, that would be like what's the Kevin Hart Will Ferrell?
It's Jackson and Jones. The
Act Hard.
The what?
What is the Kevin Hart Will Ferrell movie?
Get Hard.
Get Hard. It's like Get Hard NFL quarterbacks. Alex, no, I don't think they're boys. Alex Meerman asks, one player we drafted that you guys thought was going to be insane, but ended up being a bust.
Max Williams, I thought, was going to be really productive. I don't know if I thought he was going to be like this insanely athletic, amazing tight end, but I thought he was going to put up some numbies with Flacco. It just seems like he had Joe Flacco production written all over him. Didn't quite work out for a litany of reasons, but nice little utility player. Going to hopefully have a career after the Ravens over there with the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury. But Max Williams would probably be my pick there.
I think I was either 10 or 11 when the Ravens drafted Kyle Bowler, and I was so impressed that he could throw the ball through the uprights from the 50-yard line on his knee.
Or on his knees, bro. 70 yards.
I thought that was so impressive that I remember like going and grabbing my dad and being like, oh my God, Dad, they just traded for Kyle. And now in retrospect, he only started 2 years in high school or college. He's basically Mitch Trubisky, but with like a cannon and not quite as mobile. I thought Kyle Bowler, I was like, it's perfect. He can throw the ball all the way down the field and the defense can just like stuff people. And
Travis
then
Taylor's gonna outrun everyone and like the ball's just going to be there.
I thought Kyle Bowler was going to be able to launch deep ball touchdowns, and I didn't realize how inaccurate he was and like how much of a cokehead he was, and that he was just horrible and never really started, and it was not good. The other one who was not bad but was average to above average is Mark Clayton. I thought Mark Clayton was going to be an all-pro wide receiver. They didn't really draft people from Oklahoma that often. I thought he was so good in college, and he was really good in college. He was all right. He wasn't bad, but he was not, an all-pro receiver by any means.
I thought Elam was kind of a boomer bust guy, but I was leaning towards boom, obviously, because I'm a little biased. But I thought Arthur Brown was a rock-solid pick in 2013.
Arthur Brown I was high on too, for sure. Terrence Cody I was super duper high on, and he was okay in the Super Bowl season. He was okay, but couple guys that didn't quite pan out. Kindle is the one that you can't even really call a bust, and I don't think we'll ever know what actually happened to him. I don't think he fell downstairs. I think he did something weird.
I think he was just probably blasted and he fell down the stairs, and it was like, well, I can't tell them I was like really fucked up, so I'm just gonna say I just fell downstairs. I think,
or he got beat up or something. Who knows?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You're right. Ravens for life, baby. Which team will have the most wins in the NFL this season?
I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints.
Not a bad pick. tough-ish division. I'm trying to think who just really dominates their division.
A lot of good divisions this year. I was kind of looking at the Niners.
They're pretty balanced.
Yeah,
they're pretty balanced. Let's go with the wild card here. Let's go Minnesota Vikings.
I've got a new man on the Minnesota Vikings.
Who?
That was just a Lizzo reference.
Oh, on the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to go Vikings. I'm going to go they have a strong year. They've had a lot of continuity. Same coach. Cousins is there a couple years. Offensive line's good intact. Good defense. Let's see.
I need a little bit of stress relief for our guy Florio. I need him to have this.
Is he's a Vikings fan?
Yeah.
I did not even know that. Never known. Great job, Florio. You're unbiased as hell. That about does it for Instagram. And then we had some fun ones on Twitter, which might take me 15 or so seconds to pull up. Filibustering.
I think I bookmarked most of them.
There was a question about Jalen Ramsey, I recall.
Okay, it's our guy MD Lasso Easy 2. Wonder who that could be. Do you think Jalen Ramsey is overrated? He's frequently portrayed as this Hall of Game level dominant player. Think he meant Hall of Fame. Who could say? Yet the past 2 seasons have been underwhelming.
I think he was in a shitty situation in Jacksonville. He goes to the Rams. The Rams were not putting Marcus Peters in a great place to succeed. Asking weird things of their corners, putting them in weird situations. I saw that he had allowed a +7 completion percentage over expected. So that means that passes were being completed more than they should have been at average last year. I think that he's a really physically gifted player, super great at pressing at the line of scrimmage. I think he has really strong ball skills. Overhyped a little tiny bit, sure. Drafted really high, traded for multiple first-round picks, going to get a huge contract. Uber athletic.
Should have been drafted by the Ravens in 2016.
Do I think that he's better than Patrick Peterson when Patrick Peterson was at the same age? No.
Interesting.
That's my way of putting it. I think I would take like Patrick Peterson at 24, 25 over Jalen Ramsey. I think Jalen it's impossible to ever leave him out of like a top 5 or a top 10 because he's a playmaker. He really is a playmaker. And he also is a physical player. He hits like a mamma jamma. And it's just a shame that he's not put in a press man scheme like New England or with the Saints or with the Ravens or someone like that. I think he's being a little bit misused at times. The Jaguars are having him play too much zone at times. And there's just like, if you have a number 1 corner, let him play press man. Let him go do the damn thing. I think a lot of receivers would say he's tough, but I don't think anyone would say he's the toughest necessarily. I think Gilmore is clearly above him. I think that Marlon is a little tiny bit stickier, but has 0 ball skills compared to Jalen Ramsey. I think 0 ball skills. I think if you're drafting cornerbacks in like a fantasy draft of some weird way, you take him nowhere below like 3 or 4, probably.
Yeah, I think he's for sure like among the top 3,
top 5.
1 as far as talent. I think he's probably the most talented corner in the league right now. I think the Patrick Peterson reference is interesting. They've got a little bit of a different toolbox as far as like their physical build, but both good in the return game. At least Jalen was in college at Florida State. Both great ball skills, just absolute dogs. I think Jalen's sort of build lends him to a little bit more of a physical, type of play than Pat Pete's did. But Jalen ultimately, I think, MD Lasso Easy. That's going to be fun to transition to. He says, overhyped, overrated, whatever you want to call it, maybe, but like I don't really put that as a fault of his when he's just, like you mentioned, been in a shitty situation for the past couple of years. I think if they have a chance to turn things around culture-wise, defensive-wise with the Rams, I think Wade Phillips is going to find out what to do with this guy sooner rather than later, and he's going to be playing.
Wade Phillips retired, I believe.
Did he?
I might be wrong.
I don't think he did. Let's look this up.
Wade Phillips most recently served as defensive coordinator. I believe the Rams got a new one.
Most
and his
recent.
name's escaping me.
Who's their defensive coordinator?
Brandon Staley.
Okay, I don't know who Brandon Staley is, but hopefully.
But I don't fucking like him.
You have this caliber of corner, you can figure out.
Brandon Staley is a 37-year-old who is 3 decades younger. He's 37 years old. Don't know much about him. He was a Broncos defensive coach at some point.
McVay's a big young guy like himself. He's bringing up Shane Waldron and now Brandon Staley, and he's just doing that whole thing. So good for him. But I just think Jalen's too talented. I think on his talent, he's probably the best corner in the league.
So Brandon Staley was the Broncos and Bears outside linebacker coach 2019, 2017, 2 years with the Bears, last year with the Broncos. He was the defensive coordinator for James Madison and John Carroll. I don't even know what that is, but
is in Columbus, Ohio. Had a couple buddies on the Lax team there.
Fair enough. But yeah, so anyway, Jalen Ramsey.
Flavortown, Ohio. Sorry.
We'll get to see. Let's give Jalen Ramsey a good offseason, which isn't even this year, but let's give him this offseason. Let's give him being situated in LA, knowing what the scheme is and everything. Let's let this be the Jalen Ramsey. Is he a potential kind of gold jacket guy this year? Let's see what he does this year.
MD Lawson
next year.
Big hot take guy. So yeah, let's just settle down
for
a minute. Ben Walks, our boy, how hard will it be for Ravens rookies to make an impact this season / what would be reasonable expectations for rookies? I'm going to go low expectations. I think it's going to be hard for them to make an impact, like we talked about a little bit earlier in the previous episode. Just with the way that the offseason is structured, they're not getting a lot of face time with the coaching staff, not getting their feet wet inside the building. Training camp is going to look a lot different. I don't think there's going to be a preseason at all, so it's going to be weird.
It is going to be weird. I think you do need to temper expectations a little bit. Patrick Queen, ton of talent, hasn't started a ton, super young still. And like I said, those linebackers are going to be the ones that come to the kind of get the brunt of judgment. Probably there's a lot of attention on them. Duvernay, I think Duvernay is such a solid guy as far as knowing what he brings to the table at this point. Hands, speed, physicality. Runs deep up the seam, tough at the catch point, not super shifty as a route runner. So I think manufacturing him touches is something that's going to happen. Some jet sweeps, some motion into the backfield, some orbit motion, that kind of stuff would all be fantastic. Ben Bredesen, those offensive linemen, they're really behind the 8 ball probably. Tyree Phillips and Ben Bredesen not being able to do the mini camp, not being able to come in, get their hands in and get that continuity. So much of offensive line is just knowing the man next to you. And I think it's going to be tough. So yes, definitely, take it easy on the rookies this year. If they are just being completely poor play, you don't have to take it that easy, but I would definitely not rely on them too much in a very strange offseason, shortened offseason environment. MD Also Easy also said, shout out to Big Toes and not a chode. God. Then the next one is
Chris Kaman fan account.
No, that's actually not even the funniest name on this Twitter. So Twitter shouldn't be free, man. I'm just going to say it. Haha Klitz and Dick asked, is Malik Harrison Leighton Vander Esch? Tested very similarly, very similar size. I think that is a good way of looking at Malik Harrison. I think Harrison maybe is a little bit more into that sandbacker, a little bit more blitzing, a little bit better as a pass rusher. Vander Esch might be a little more rangy sideline to sideline, just a touch, maybe a little smoother coverage.
Vander Esch is kind of a roamer, and Harrison plays a little closer to the line, a little bit of a thumper, but similar athletically.
Yes. I think Vander Esch, has a touch more sideline to sideline range. I think Harrison can come downhill a little harder and engage with blockers very well. Chris Kaman fan account. I've
always said that Chris Kaman is like if a White Walker turned back into a human. That's what Chris Kaman looks like.
I like that a lot. He does look like a White Walker. How would the lack of an NCAA season, delayed season, affect draft pick value? Will buying teams be more willing to trade this year's picks with less certainty? Will selling teams target 2022 picks? There is a whirlwind of things that can happen without a college football season. I would think the draft is going to have to be adjusted. I would hope that if there's no season that they would maybe play in the spring. And I really think that college football should be played in the spring instead, and that the NFL and college football can kind of each have their own spotlight maybe. But we just love football season, having our Saturdays and Sundays. If it was all played on Saturdays, that would be my utopia for football. But I believe that so many adjustments are going to happen if there's no college football. There's going to be players who want extended eligibility. There's going to be players who want to forego quickly. A lot of, guys who had a lot of hype from last season are going to get continued hype without necessarily maybe showing it an extra year. I would hope there's a lot more private workouts. I would hope there's maybe some simulated games of some sort to let teams kind of get some more workouts in with these guys and things like that. But that's a really tough one. There's a lot of monetary things that I've kind of read about a lot and have formulated some opinions. But as far as the draft and those specific questions, would teams value picks? I mean, I don't know.
I think they won't, straight up. I think the lack of a college football season, if that's the route we are going down, is really going to make the draft look very weird next year. And we saw a lack of movement, I believe, in the first round this past year, partially due to COVID. And teams are going to have much different value on some of these guys, and who knows how the draft is even going to look. But lack of a season going to be not great, especially for the prospects of these young guys. And not sure how the draft is going to look. It might even look a little bit different due to all of that. But it's a great question. And lack of a college football season is going to make the draft very weird.
Very, very, very weird. It's going to be tough. And I mean, I would think the impact would be a lot more late round players, undrafted players end up to have more successful careers than usual because it's going to be tough to talent evaluate. And you're going to have to go back based on old tape. There's going to be a lack of different things going on, and it's just a mess. Moving on, Connor Kellerstrass asks, with KC giving big money to both Mahomes and Jones, do you now expect more teams to pay their stars? I think teams do pay their stars pretty frequently. And I think that you can look at KC on how to maybe use bigger signing bonuses and less salary in order to give the team more maneuverability within, because signing bonuses, you can mess with them. You can restructure them. You can allocate the money in different years and move it around when you get to different points. Right now the Ravens have the ability to restructure Marcus Peters' contract if they want and take his bonus and turn it into a salary. And that would free up money this year, but then they have to take the cap hit of that bonus and spread it out over the following years and the remainder of the contract. And so I think teams already do pay their stars. Look at the Cowboys. Cowboys have paid Mari Cooper, Zeke, Tyron Smith, La'el Collins, Jalen Smith,
Dak Prescott.
He's going to make $30 million, so kind of, yeah. Then Zach Martin also paid. DeMarcus Lawrence also paid. That's 8 guys that have top 5 contracts at their position.
It's monopoly money. They don't care. I think teams do pay their stars.
The salary cap is a myth. I subscribe to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a myth to a degree. I think that the idea that it's a myth can kind of be a talking point for people who are a little lazy that don't want to talk about the permutations of it because it can get complicated sometimes. Right. There are some things about it that do constrain teams to a certain degree, but there are elements of it that are very much a myth.
Yes, and Jason Lockham-Fora, say what you want about him. I think he's very knowledgeable on the cap. And he had an article that I refer to a lot of times, and cash, the amount of money that you have tangibly paid players is the end all be all number, really. So cash trumps cap. How much money have you spent?
Shout out to Mark Davis.
Right. And signing bonuses are something that, Fair Shake Football, another guy we've had, Evan Monaculus, I can't remember his last name exactly. But Fair Shake Football has come on with us, and he spoke about the Raiders wanted to move from Oakland to Vegas because they weren't getting good local revenue and ticket sales, merchandising, sponsorship, all those good things, and Vegas has a better opportunity. You look at the Cowboys, they're able to sign all those players because they have the highest revenue in all of football, around $847 million estimated, I think, from their local revenue. And the Raiders in Oakland only had 355. So the Cowboys making about 3 times as much almost local revenue between sponsorships and all those good things. A couple more things about revenue is that something I found out recently, concessions revenue, not cost or profit, 3 to 5 million only per team. The highest is 5 million. So concessions, not a big deal. Ticket sales for the Green Bay Packers were 71 million last year. That doesn't include the cost of, all the things involved in putting fans in those stands. So I think those are some things to take into consideration. But that moves into our next question. D Gold 114, Dan Gold. For a fan who doesn't understand the complexities of an NFL salary cap, can you give us an approximation of how Lamar's eventual contract will affect our ability to fill out the team? Well, on a base level, if he makes more money, you don't have as much money to spend within that salary cap. Now, if you give him a lot of bonus money, as we discussed, the way the Chiefs are with Patrick Mahomes, you're able to slide that around for the duration of the contract. It gives you mobility. The bonus, as I said, can be moved from year to year to year. It does all get due eventually. But Lamar's going to occupy a higher percentage of that cap. And, the way that Vaz likes to put it, do you want to have 8 to 10 blue chip cornerstone players that you pay and then try to fill the rest out with rookies and low-level veterans? Or do you want 5 to 7 cornerstone players and then you get more mid-level veteran talent, free agency signings, those kinds of things? And I think the best way to do it is have those blue-chip players, as many as you can get, that are at the premium positions: left tackle, quarterback, receiver, cornerback, pass rushers, tight end, safety, all that good stuff. So it's definitely a tangled web, but Lamar making a ton of money, it also can be a good thing. If Lamar is a superstar, he's going to bring in revenue. He's going to bring in sponsorships, merchandising, TV ratings, all those good things. He's going to put fans in the stands. He's going to sell apparel, generate that local revenue. And again, like we just said, the reason the Cowboys are able to pay 8 players and have these huge signing bonuses is because they're the number 1 most profitable team in the NFL. They have the highest local revenue. When I say local revenue, that means your franchise makes this money from what you do. The other is TV revenue. TV revenue accounts for about 50% of all revenue in the NFL. What the current TV deal is, that's up after 2021-2022 season, is that $5 billion gets paid to the Shield, to the National Football League first. Anything after that from TV revenue meaning advertisements, commercials, those league-wide sponsorships, all that stuff, is excess and then given back to the teams. We know because the Green Bay Packers are the only public team, so they have to release their records. They got a $255 million cut of the pie for TV revenue. So that's divided 32 ways, which turns out to be about $13 billion in TV revenue that the team split up. So when you look at the Raiders, who had local revenue of, $350 billion before, or $350 million, before you take away their expenses and look at their profit, that means that most of their profit is coming from that TV deal. Whereas the Cowboys are, not as dependent on the TV stuff as they are on sponsorship, merchandising, apparel, those other different things. So hopefully that gives you some insight.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing. And just the way that contracts are initially reported and structured. So if you see something like Mahomes, where it's reported as a 12-year, $503 million deal, that initial figure is kind of just put out there to make the agent look good. You
guaranteed money.
Yeah, exactly. You want to look into that guaranteed money. So for something like Mahomes, it was reported as that initial figure, but it actually turned out being a 6-year deal with $28.3 million in guaranteed money as salary year over year. So when it comes to Lamar, you're going to see a very big number reported at first. Keep an eye out for that guaranteed money. And then everything else Spencer said is spot on. Don't really have too much to add because I'm not a cap guru.
So the thing about that is Derrick Henry, for instance, had $50 million deal. I can't remember the
4 years, 50, I think, technically.
And yeah, so that's like Jake said, that's the agent money. That's including incentives. Rush for 1,000 yards, make the playoffs, win a Super Bowl, make an all-pro team, make a Pro Bowl, score 10 touchdowns. Teams can make incentives whatever they want. They can make them attainable or not attainable. The player has, negotiating right with his agent and that stuff too. But guaranteed money, Derrick Henry only gets $6.5 million a year. So 4 years, 24 million guaranteed, I believe. So that's not, crazy breaking the bank. Then we look at Myles Garrett and Chris Jones, who also signed deals instead of the franchise tag. They signed their extensions. Chris Jones gets a 65 million guaranteed, and then Myles Garrett was at like 80. So when you see these like big Mahomes has the $500 million contract. He's never going to get all of it. He's going to get all the guaranteed money though, and that's much less than $500 million, but still in that 9-digit range. So there you go.
Very cool. Any other questions?
I believe that about did it.
That's good. I'm a very tired boy right now.
I am a tired boy as well. So that about does it for this mailbag episode. My closing piece is, again, that the NFL owners kind of put this statement, and maybe we get an update. The NFLPA and the union are still working to try and make sure there's not a stoppage, and that the players feel safe with COVID and there's not some shit show, and they want to play football. I mean, they want to get their salaries. They want to get those game checks. They want to get paid. They want to play. They want to play the game they love, all that good stuff. The owners tried to propose 35% of the player's salary, so of their game checks, put into an escrow without any, limit on when they would get them back, anything. The players kind of laughed at that. The reason is because the owners claimed that they're projecting $4 billion in revenue lost from COVID. That's local. And my question is, how much profit is lost? How much net revenue is lost? You're not going to have as much staff. You're not going to spend as much money on electricity. You're not going to have all the concessions. You're not going to have to worry about these ancillary expenses. So what is the profit actually lost? Then, as we discuss TV ratings, let's say, Raven Stadium's usually filled with 70,000 people. There's usually around 100,000 people right outside the stadium and all that good stuff. How many of those people are going to be watching on TV, man? A lot of them. TV ratings are going to go up. You're going to get a bigger piece of pie. You're going to have more revenue to TV revenue. In the end, how much money are they really going to lose? And if you're an NFL owner, I would hope that the NFL vets you to the point where you can take a season of reduced profit, let alone maybe a little bit of loss. So you shouldn't own an NFL team if you can't survive this stuff. And taking the money away from the players is complete and utter bullshit, in my opinion. They should be getting hazard pay, if anything. They're the ones putting it all on the line, and to take it away from them is just squeezing the blood out of every penny that they can. And I find it extremely selfish for them to even think about proposing that. Is a slap in the face. They just had the collective bargaining agreement. New TV deals are coming. Amazon apparently wants in big time on the next TV deal, and I would anticipate them to put at least $15 billion a year forth, which would be 3 times the current amount. They want the streaming. There's going to be a streaming war, because that was not a thing in this last TV deal. So that's my closing piece, is that the owners trying to say they're going to lose money is pretty much bullshit, and they should just play the damn season if the players are willing.
I'm with you on all of that. Is that all we've got for today?
That's all we've got. My friend Jake is at the beach currently, enjoying himself, sipping a Mai Tai with his feet up. Let the boy breathe.
Oh, yeah. The boy's going to be having himself a very nice week. Hopefully get down to Ocean City, have some nice fun in the sun, and, just relax and forget about all this for a little while. The world's in a weird place, but hopefully when I get back and when we are recording again, it is going to be in a better place. I guess that's going to be sometime in the week following the week of July 24th, when this episode is going to be posted. Maybe we'll do 2 episodes of that week, maybe we'll do a super long episode to get caught up, but I'm assuming there's going to be some news in between now and then that we're going to need to be discussing. So until then, really appreciate you guys listening over the last couple of weeks. It's been fun putting out this evergreen episode. Hopefully we'll do more of these at some point in the future. Thanks for listening. You can follow the show on Twitter at Podcast Beatdown. You can follow me at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. And you can follow Spencer at Ravens 4 Dummies. That's the number 4 in the middle. Check us out on YouTube if you want this full episode stream. Check out BaltimoreBeatdown.com for all our great written content. Really appreciate you guys, and have a great weekend.
See ya. Wear your freaking masks so we can get football back.
And call your parents. Bye. All right, nice.
2.5 hours down the drain. Just kidding.
Oh, yep, it certainly is. I will get those cut up and ready to be posted. Really appreciate everyone chiming in on the stream, joining in. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you will go back and listen again. Should you be so inclined, we'll be releasing them tomorrow on Friday the 17th, and then Friday the 24th next week for the mailbag. So, yeah, appreciate it, guys.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Love all y'all. Talk to you next time.
Peace out.